Watching continuing coverage of Milton from WESH 2.
This has been a very difficult time for a lot of people in the state of Florida to have a major hurricane come. Not even 2 weeks ago that we got hit with Hurricane Helene. You never want to have to go through that again, but you certainly don't want to have to go through it on the heels of less than 2 weeks after getting hit by a Category 4 to potentially have another major hurricane that's going to impact some of the very same areas.
And just a few weeks after Helene hit Florida's major hurricane, the Sunshine State is facing another one. Milton is still hundreds of miles away, but expected to make landfall on Florida's west coast.
And so many people across the Tampa area and here in Central Florida are getting ready. Today is the day to make those final preparations. We have a team of reporters and photojournalists that are scattered all across the state right now to help you get ready. We also have a team of meteorologists that have been tracking this around the clock.
We've got Eric and Marquise joining us now, and we've got that 8 a.m. advisory that came down about an hour ago, along with an updated wind speed and location. We also had a few more warnings.
Yeah, so now essentially all of Central Florida under hurricane warnings, and this isn't because of any kind of shift in the forecast.
Right.
It's just hurricane watches and warnings operate based on a clock. So now we're within 36 hours of our coastal communities, Marquise, getting into those hurricane conditions.
And not only are they under hurricane warnings, they're also under storm surge warnings, which means we're 36 hours away from seeing those tides rise across both Flagler and Volusia counties.
Real quick, if you guys can just kind of like specify for the folks at home, I think we throw around these terms, watches, warnings all the time.
Right.
You know, people's relationship with weather is different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what's the difference between a watch and a warning, and what happened between this morning and just now?
Right. So when we talk about like tornado and severe thunderstorm, that's different. A warning means it's happening. A watch means conditions are possible. When it comes to the tropics, a warning means that you're within 36 hours of those conditions. So that's all it is. It's just now we're inside of that window, right? So all of Central Florida now within 36 hours. I want to show you, this is minute by minute. Every frame is 1 minute, 1 minute satellite imagery, and we're seeing a new eye starting to peek out on Hurricane Milton. It's a bit weaker this morning because it essentially built a new eye wall, collapsed the old one, and is growing in size. Look for the storm system to get stronger over the course of the day today, okay? Hurricane hunters are inside investigating, and as a matter of fact, both the United States Air Force and NOAA aircraft just punched the storm, and I'll show you, this is the wind speeds off of the Air Force Hurricane Hunter, and they found at least winds gusting to Category 5 speed, okay? So very clearly, we may already be starting an upward trek. That is forecast from the National Hurricane Center, okay? Expected to get up to 160 mile per hour winds today. Then as it starts to lift closer to Florida, it starts to feel a little bit of wind shear from a cold front north of us and weaken a little bit right up to about landfall, making landfall as a Category 3 storm with 125 mile per hour winds, crossing over Florida, more than likely around high Category 1, low Category 2 over top of the metro, and then coming off the shoreline with winds of about 80 miles an hour. So that said, today is the day to finish your preps. We have a medium confidence on our overall impacts. Tomorrow morning, any last second stuff you need to do, but after that, it's getting into storm mode because tomorrow afternoon, evening, and overnight, that's when the hurricane moves our direction. So that said, Marquise, let's talk about some of those impacts. One of the big ones is flooding.
Yes, not just across the coastline, but even inland. We'll see the opportunity for flash floods widespread all across Central Florida. In fact, every one of our counties is under this magenta shaded polygon where flooding is going to be expected. Of course, it will be more immense across our west coast here, with the storm surge possibly being uninhabitable for weeks, if not even months, when Milton does make landfall. We're talking about a storm surge that could be anywhere between 10 and 15 feet. So that's above a story, nearly 2 stories of storm surge rushing onto the coast. But here in Central Florida, we've had a saturated start to the month of October. Numerous cities are above in a surplus for rainfall accumulation. So any rain that we're dumping down on top of that could potentially lead to some flash floods. As we take a look at the timeline, I want you guys to be locked in by noontime tomorrow, because 12 hours from that could possibly be landfall. We're expecting landfall anytime between 10 o'clock on Wednesday, maybe 2 o'clock in the morning on Thursday. So those overnight hours, we'll see Milton come on shore, and throughout the day on Wednesday, conditions are going to ramp up, and they will be the worst overnight when the sun has already set. So here's a look. We're taking you county by county right now, and we'll continue to do so as the show goes on. But across Polk County, this is where we could see some of the fastest winds. With that new 8 o'clock advisory, we have a new track, and that does push the eye across Polk County. And inside that eye, wind speeds are going to be above Category 1 strength. Gusts could be up to 90+ miles per hour. And then on top of that, we have the rain that we talked about, which could lead to some additional flooding. 4 to 7 inches of precipitation. As you head further north, well, the rainfall could be even greater. Here's Sumter County with max gusts of 90 miles per hour, but take a look at the rain. 5 to 8 inches locally. We could have rainfall accumulation reports of 10+ inches of precipitation, so that could definitely lead to some flooding concerns. And as we head east across I-4 into Seminole County, rainfall not as significant, but still enough to produce flooding conditions. 5 to 8 inches with max gusts of 80+ miles per hour. We'll continue to take you county by county, though, coming up next time I see you.
All right, Marquise, thank you. We've both been talking with family and friends who live in the Tampa region. They are not taking any of these warnings lightly. And as that storm is getting closer and closer, so many people are making their plans to leave that region. And a lot of those families are evacuating to get to safer areas.
And keep in mind, evacuation orders are in place for more than half of Pinellas County. WESH News' Megan Mackey explains businesses are boarded up, and residents that she spoke to this morning say they're ready to hit the road.
Most of the gas stations here in Pinellas County are out of gas. This is a look at the Chevron in the city of Seminole. This is in Pinellas County. You can see no more gas, and there's bags over the gas pumps. And also many of the businesses, including the Chevron, are boarded up. But this one is open this morning for people needing those last minute items. I'm only a couple miles away from Madera Beach, and this is an area where people are still cleaning up all that debris from Hurricane Helene. A family I spoke to this morning that lives just down the road has lived here for 30 years and told me this storm and these evacuation orders are no joke.
Don't take any chances. You know, it's not worth it. It's not worth your life taking chances like that. I know we're right here, we're on high ground, and we've, as I said before, we've been very lucky in the past. But you just don't know, and this looks like a direct hit so far.
A struggle for many people evacuating right now is that all the hotels in Tampa Bay are booked. The family I spoke to said they're likely going to ride out the storm in Atlanta and then come back after it passes. The Pinellas County Sheriff's Office says that everyone must be off the barrier islands by 7 o'clock tonight. The owner of this gas station tells me he'll be open until 5 o'clock for those last minute supplies. Reporting in Pinellas County, Megan Mackey, WESH 2 News.
I just feel for all these families because they're trying to get everything in order that they need to get out of there before this hits. And we know that families in our area are also concerned because we've had parts of Orlando and Seminole County that have been flooding just from regular, that we started September so wet in Delaney Park, Wadeview Park, and parts of Thornton Park. Not to mention Orla Vista is another neighborhood in Orange County that tends to flood as well.
Yeah, rising waters and flooding have been such a problem. WESH News' Bob Hazen is at the Bithlo Community Park sandbag site, which had to open early.
This sandbag location at Bithlo Community Park wasn't supposed to open till 9, but it did about 2 hours early. And you can see people showed up here right away. There's a sand pile over there, lots of people filling up. And then to the right over here, there's another pile. And you can't really see it right now because there's so many cars blocking it in that you can't see that pile itself. Now, again, this is one of 6 locations throughout Orange County. This will probably be the last chance for people to come out and get these sandbags before the storm starts hitting in Orange County. And I talked to some of the folks out here about what they're worried about.
I mean, it's just one of the biggest storms I've ever seen, but what I know is that God is good and he's in control and sovereign. And honestly, as looking at this being the perfect storm, it's like, man, there's only one place I can go, and it's the Lord. So I'm learning how not to be worried. But yeah, apart from that, worried for, I think just personally for flooding and all that, but definitely for family and friends too.
Again, Orange County has 6 places where you can fill up bags today. They are here at Bithlo Community Park, at Barnett Park, Clarcona Horse Park, Downey Park, Meadow Woods Recreation Center, and the West Orange Recreation Center. These are set to close at 7 o'clock tonight. Unless the weather gets too bad, they might have to shut them down early. And a piece of advice, you might want to bring a shovel out here, because while there are a few out here, they do get caught up pretty quickly by people showing up to fill up their bags. So if you have your own, that'll make it a little bit easier. Reporting in Bithlo, Bob Hazen, WESH 2 News.
Right, there are several sandbag sites that are set up all across our Central Florida counties. In Brevard County, the sandbag locations will be open until 6 this evening. In Titusville, on Merritt Island, in Melbourne, and Palm Bay. And in Lake County, there are sandbag locations in Sorrento, Umatilla, Clermont, and Tavares that will be open until 7 p.m. In Seminole County, we've got sites in Sanford, Altamont Springs, Lake Mary, and Oviedo. All of these sites have different hours. We've got a full list of all of these locations and all the details scrolling right now at the bottom of your screen. You can also find them right now on WESH.com.
Okay, we're staying on top of transportation here. We've got an update from the airport, from Sunrail, and now we just got an update on Port Canaveral status within the last hour.
Yeah, let's check in with Jason Guy. He's been keeping track on what this could mean for people who were set to travel or come home from a trip.
Yeah, I mean, we know this is such a popular spot. We've got our Royal Caribbean and Carnival cruise lines that sail out of here. Thousands and thousands of people take those trips on a regular basis. So let's first start talking here about one of the cruise lines. This is Royal Caribbean. We've got our team at the news desk. They're making calls to all of these cruise lines and checking this out. I went through the notes here. Just want to break down a few of the ships. They're either sailing to different ports or they're adding in sea days. Grandeur of the Seas is now going to skip stops in Mexico to avoid the bad weather. They'll instead visit the Bahamas. Symphony of the Seas is sailing from the New York area now. It's going to bypass us. It was going to stop here in New York, and they're going to keep on going past the cruise line's private island in Nassau and instead visit the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Wonder of the Seas will skip Honduras and Jamaica and eventually go to Mexico in a southern spot of Mexico there, so they avoid bad weather. Those are just some adjustments for Royal Caribbean cruisers so they can get out there. Carnival Cruise Line's also watching the storm situation from its operations center in Miami. They told us Carnival Paradise will skip a stop in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. That's where that storm is battering place right now, and instead they'll sail further south to a spot in Mexico. It stays away from bad weather. Carnival Valor will not visit Mexico and instead have a day at sea. Those are ways Carnival's keeping the fun for all while staying out of the storm's path. And we are talking about Port Canaveral going into what officials call condition X-ray. Officials say that there are going to be some ships that have disruptions, and it's because they are expecting bad weather. We know it may be as much as, say, 48 hours from now, but they're expecting bad weather there at the port as Milton moves through. So the key takeaway for officials, they are saying if you have a cruise coming up over the next few days or even into next weekend, you will want to stay in close contact with your cruise line. Guys?
Some good advice there. I think the bottom line is if you're planning on flying or jumping on a ship or any mode of transportation, check with those individual companies. Yeah. From Orange County all the way to Volusia, we know last-minute preparations are underway as we speak.
Yeah, so many people are trying to take advantage of, this relative calm before the storm. I hate to use a cliche, but this is the time to do that storm prep as we keep an eye on this system that keeps churning there in the Gulf as it makes its way closer and closer to Florida. We'll have the latest on this track and the impacts that we could feel here in Central Florida coming up.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Milton.
We were talking earlier about the evacuation orders that are in place along the west coast of Florida. Most of Central Florida, we do not have those evacuation orders in place, but parts of our coastal communities do.
Yeah, we want to take you over to Volusia County now, where WESH 2's tonight, Gabriel is joining us. How are the waves out there?
Hey guys, so it is a bit windy and you can hear the waves crashing behind me. As I step out, you'll see those white caps, and look at that high tide. Just know that this surge is going to pick up as the hours go on. So I know it's cliche, but really this is the calm before the storm. And hopefully that person you see there by the water, hopefully they are no longer there by tomorrow, and that everyone in this area evacuates, because the county has placed an evacuation order that begins tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So they're just telling people, anyone in the campsites, mobile homes, any low-lying areas where it's prone to flooding, people on the barrier island, you all should leave by tomorrow morning. And there are several shelters available to you. The general population can stay at the fairgrounds, and then there are some schools that are operating as shelters as well, and then some options for people with special needs. And also, starting tomorrow night, there will be a curfew. They're trying to discourage people from coming outside and making sure they stay indoors while we ride out this storm. They don't want to see any traffic out on the roads, and they hope to lift this curfew by 8 o'clock Thursday morning. And there are a number of sandbag locations as well, and I'm sure people are out there taking full advantage since they have the time now, because today really is the last chance for people to make those final last-minute preparations before landfall. Reporting live in Volusia County, Sonaga Brigadicus, WESH 2 News.
All right. The governor was also talking about some of the preparations that the state has been doing to help some of the local counties and the impacted path of this storm as well.
Yeah, and we know he's declared a state of emergency for 51 of our counties. He also talked about all of the fuel shipments that were coming into the state to help replenish the gas stations, which we know have been incredibly busy. Yeah. And there is more gas en route.
Now, there is no fuel shortage. Fuel continues to arrive in the state of Florida by port and what we're doing to bring it in on the ground. But lines at gas stations have been long. Gas stations are running out quicker than they otherwise would. And so that is causing the state of Florida to help assist with the mission.
I was telling you guys earlier, I went to get some gas yesterday, and I waited for 24 minutes, which I can't complain about, because I've seen videos from other parts of the Orlando area where people were waiting much longer than that. But today's the day to do that, and it's a relief that we do have the resources. It just might take a little finagling and, driving around to different neighborhoods.
If you have to,
But it's nice to see everybody is heeding the warnings, and they're taking a look at the storm and the rapid intensification that we saw yesterday, and they're doing what needs to be done to keep their families safe. But as we move into today, we know that we're going to learn a lot more about this storm. And what did we just learn during the 8 a.m. advisory?
Yeah, so the advisories were upgraded. So all of Central Florida is now under hurricane warnings, meaning hurricane conditions are expected for all of Central Florida. But today, while the intensity is down just a little bit, that is absolutely no way, shape, or form a moment of relief, unfortunately, because we think that it's just a temporary kind of sigh in intensity.
Yeah, so yesterday we were talking about a borderline record-setting Category 5, right? We saw the rapid intensification with wind speeds up to 180 miles per hour. When it makes landfall, it's going to be a strong Cat 3, maybe even a Cat 4, so still going to be immense impacts widespread all throughout the state. So you can't really take your eye off the ball. Just because it's downgraded a tiny bit, the impacts are going to be monumental.
When do you see the re-strengthening into a Cat 5 potentially happening?
We think it's probably starting right now. This is kind of 1 minute by 1 minute satellite data. The GO-16 generation of satellites has been just wonderful, and it gives us a chance to really watch to see when Milton wants to clear out that eye. But at this point in time, hurricane hunters are inside. There are 2 missions squiggling through the thing, and they're finding that the pressure is holding firm about here, about 929 millibars. So for now, it has not gotten stronger. But I would venture a guess as to, now that the sun is up, it has an opportunity to kind of clear out that eye, we will see some re-strengthening. So it should become a Category 5. Then we think as it approaches Florida, there's a cold front north that should kind of force a little bit of wind shear in and bring it back down to, as Marquise had mentioned, that Category 3/Category 4 at landfall. And if you're waking up wondering if the cone looks any different than when you went to bed, I'm happy to report that while it has gotten smaller, just because we've gotten closer in time, the actual landfall point from last night's 11 o'clock advisory to this morning's 5 a.m. advisory is basically the same. There was no shift, and there's been such a little shift for the last 24 hours time. So we're locking in this forecast as best as we can. 9 a.m. tomorrow. Tomorrow morning about this time, it'll be about abeam Fort Myers, then getting close and close and close to the Sun Coast. By about 9 o'clock, that eye wall coming ashore from Sarasota, Bradenton, up through about Tampa Bay, Pinellas County, and the core of the winds working through our area by about 3, 4, 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. In terms of the threats, we're expecting several tornadoes around Central Florida, and unfortunately, flooding is becoming a bigger and bigger concern. Take a look at the global models, the European on the left, the GFS on the right, both showing these shades of red. So we're looking at anywhere from a half a foot to a foot of rain looking at tomorrow and Thursday. So that is certainly a growing concern. But when we take a look at the storm as a whole, we've got wind, we've got tornadoes, we've got rain. Let's kind of look at the forest through the trees, Marquise.
Yes, Eric, this storm is going to be a beast. Much different from what we've seen with Helene just a week and a half ago, where Helene rode parallel to the Gulf Coast, and we didn't see these monumental impacts inland. Now, with Milton moving across the I-4 corridor and basically running parallel to it will bring in the rain showers, will bring in the severe weather risk, and we are certainly going to bring in the chance for flooding across our inland communities as well. Even the chance for some coastal surge on the back end of Milton on the eastern side of Florida. That coastal flooding could be anywhere between 3 to 5 feet, but I think the primary impacts that we're focused on across Central Florida will be the wind and also the chance for flooding. Our northernmost communities could see anywhere between 8 and 12 inches of precipitation, but the winds start to pick up early out the door on Wednesday morning. You'll feel that breeze. Tropical storm force winds are going to be predicted for Wednesday afternoon, and then we get into that hurricane category overnight Wednesday and then into Thursday. So we take you hour by hour on Futurecast. Here we are in Polk County with gusts upwards of 35 miles per hour. That puts you in that tropical storm force wind field. And this is only 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Wednesday. So you want to make sure the preparation is done before the winds start to pick up. As we take you further in time now, 50 mile per hour conditions across parts of Polk County. Claremont, 45 to 50 mile per hour winds late on Wednesday night. We have that landfall overnight Wednesday into Thursday. And check this out. Wind speeds are nearly 90 miles per hour across parts of Polk County. So the closer you get to this eye, the faster the winds are going to be. And these are hurricane force strength winds still well after landfall. And even as Milton pushes off into the Atlantic, you see our northern communities now getting on the action with winds gusting upwards of 50 miles per hour. And that will certainly increase the rough surf and the storm surge for parts of Flagler, also Volusia County, where we have those storm surge warnings in effect. So as we take you through your timeline here, squalls start to increase on Wednesday afternoon. We talked about those tropical storm force winds. Overnight, hurricane force conditions are going to be expected. And then into the day on Thursday, we're tracking that eye moving just south of the I-4 corridor, increasing wind speeds all across Central Florida and the chance for some heavier rain to our north. We're taking a look at our tower cam. Looks like the showers have stopped in Volusia County for the moment. We'll see those off and on again chances for precipitation with an east coast breeze. Not much going on right now, just a couple lighter rain showers out towards Astor. So the rain came to an end in Daytona Beach, but we'll see the opportunity for more showers coming up. Ultimately, though, today, pockets of heavy rain will be back, and we'll have much more extensive rain, strong gusty winds, and the chance for severe weather with Milton making landfall Wednesday and overnight into Thursday before we start to clear out over the course of the weekend. But stay with us. We've got much more news coming your way right after the break.
WESH 2. This is continuing coverage of Milton.
All right, a lot of us had some branches and twigs come down when Helene came through our area, and some of us still have them waiting at the edge of the yard. They haven't been collected yet. They're sitting in those, yard waste bags.
Yeah, just one of the preparations that you need to take care of. We know that trees are at a higher risk of falling right now because the ground has been very wet since Hurricane Helene passed by us nearly 2 weeks ago towards the Big Bend area. Experts say trimming branches and limbs can avoid expensive damage and prevent leaks, but also remember at this point, if you're trimming those branches, they better have a place to go. We cannot just leave them on the side of the road this late in the game. You got to make sure you take care of it from start to finish. Also remember to leave the job to the pros because they can safely spot signs of disease and decay. Now we do remind you of this every storm. The easiest time to schedule a tree service is early in the year and before hurricane season.
Yes. But, we learn each time.
We do,
and it's a
we
reminder for everyone. But yeah, I can't stress enough, get that stuff cleared away. Put it back in the garage or away from your yard because those can become projectiles or clog the drains in your neighborhood and then lead to all kinds of other issues. All right, we know we've seen some long lines at gas stations around the area. I got stuck in one yesterday.
Well, Sheldon, we have a way that you can make sure you can check which pumps are available before you head out the door. That's coming.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Milton.
Florida's Gulf Coast is bracing for its second hurricane in just the past couple of weeks and is expected to take the brunt of Milton's effects. There's a live look right now at I-75. This is along the turnpike south of Wildwood. It has been quite a parking lot as everyone's trying to get out.
All right, we want to give you a look at where Milton is this morning. Well, this is where Milton will be going in the next couple of days. It is currently sitting just off the coast of Mexico. There we go, bringing rain and wind to the Yucatan Peninsula.
All right, 9:31 on this Tuesday morning. Thank you so much for staying with us in our coverage of this storm. We're joined by First Warning meteorologist Eric Burse and Marquise Mita. They've been tracking this storm for days now, including yesterday's rapid intensification that caught so many people by surprise because it just developed so quickly. But It's down to a 4 right now.
Yes.
What's the latest?
Yes, so hurricane hunters are in there. They're zigzagging around. And, you know, intensity forecasting still is very, very difficult. It's gotten significantly better than the last 20 years, but it's not perfect. And so what we do see is the eye wall kind of developing a new eye wall, and thus we think wind fields will expand in diameter and we'll start to see strengthening again.
Absolutely. And one of the things that may impact the strengthening is the sun rising, right? That's going to heat up the water temperatures a little bit. So we could possibly see with the next advisory, wind speeds picking up and the pressure going down.
Right. So we're watching it. I mean, the hurricane, there's 2 missions. They're moving around and we're looking at the data live. They've just pushed on through, found about 927 millibars. Both are outbound. The Air Force, which is that red line there, the Air Force is kind of on a base leg. They'll be turning back final and going back into the center here shortly and try and get another core punch just to see where we're at. But I want to show you, this is the wind data off of that Air Force aircraft, and you see that they did find a peak on that kind of southwestern eye wall structure into Cat 5 winds. Now, the Hurricane Center has not done any upgrading. Their next official update comes at 11 o'clock. But if we keep getting winds like this, certainly that would indicate that Milton is trying to get stronger once again. There's the satellite presentation. It's very clear that as it pulls away from the Yucatan, it's wanting to develop another eye wall. Expected to become a Category 5 later today, then pulling away from the Yucatan and approaching Florida, start to slowly weaken as it feels some wind shear, kind of the same thing that's steering it toward Florida. We expect a Category 3 to make landfall. That's a strong Category 3, by the way, crossing over our area as a Category 2 and then moving off the shoreline as a Category 1. So today is the day to finish our storm preps. Tomorrow morning, any last-second stuff you need to get done, you can. And then looking ahead to Wednesday night and early Thursday, that's when the core of the storm moves through the area. And a big part of this certainly is those wind gusts. Here's meteorologist Marquise Meada to really pinpoint where the worst will be.
Well, Eric, we'll see those wind speeds start to pick up Wednesday afternoon. We'll start to feel those tropical storm force gusts right here in central Florida. But you see this magenta shaded region, this polygon here, that's where wind gusts could be greater than 100, maybe even 110 miles per hour. Wind's going to be a major factor with Milton making its landfall Wednesday night and across Thursday. And where we see those 110 plus mile per hour conditions, that's where we could also see the chance for power outages, which will be widespread and numerous all across the state of Florida. Now, Milton's going to continue to run almost parallel to the I-4 corridor, heading just south of it. And that's where we see the wind speeds to our north, possibly still Category 1 force strength with that red shaded region. So as we take you through this timeline, here's where the worst of the weather is going to be. Wednesday overnight, well, from the evening to the overnight hours, if you're across I-75, that's when the storm surge will start to pick up. We'll feel the heavier winds as well with this yellow shaded region. It's right around 11 o'clock on Wednesdays when conditions will start to take a turn for the worst. And then throughout the overnight hours into Thursday morning with this green shaded region encompassing cities like Palm Coast, Daytona Beach, New Smyrna Beach, that's when we start to see the worst of the weather coming your way. So we'll take you through a couple of counties really quick. Rainfall is going to be a major issue for Lake County, 4 to 8 inches. You're under that hurricane warning with maximum gusts of possibly 85 miles per hour or greater. And we'll take you through one more county. This is Orange, in which we're still under that hurricane warning as well. 36 hours away from those hurricane impacts, in which we could see gusty conditions of up to 85 miles per hour or even greater. We'll continue to take you county by county, though, coming up next time I see you.
All right, Marquise, thank you so much. And we're keeping an eye on the conditions all around our area right now. And we wanted to turn to what's happening down on the Gulf Coast, the southwest part of our state, and how they're getting ready.
Yeah, we have Alina Lee here, a meteorologist from our sister station who is live in St. Petersburg right now. So we've been saying this all morning here in Central Florida as well, but this really is the last day for any last-minute prep.
Yeah, it truly is, you guys. In fact, it's quiet right now here near St. Petersburg, and of course, even farther west of here, where the Barrier Islands are. Of course, the conditions are perfect for you to be able to make those preparations and get out of town if you can. Of course, 500,000 people were urged to do so today if they haven't already. Of course, as we get through the evening hours, things are going to rapidly change with the conditions. However, the one thing that many folks who have decided to stick it out and maybe not leave until today, they're going to find it very difficult to get gas. At least we noticed that was a difficult task for us even yesterday afternoon. I know this gas station in particular ran out of gas as early as Sunday afternoon, but the owner here says he's going to keep his doors open for those who need to get some last minute items. So you can certainly still do so, even though his building is boarded up. There are little signs there taped to the doors that say open, and he'll be open till 5 o'clock this afternoon here just outside of St. Petersburg. Of course, again, we'll continue to bring you those new updates, any conditions that change throughout the day into tomorrow. And of course, as landfall happens, we'll be right here with you to take you through the storm. Live in St. Petersburg, I'm meteorologist Alina Leah. Send it back to you.
All right, thanks so much for your perspective. It is so wild to see all the preparations happening down there, but it does seem like a lot of people are heeding the warnings, and that is what we like to see.
But Alina also talked to some folks that said they're going to ride out the storm there, and I'm so curious, like, what's going through, that thought process. No, there's so many variables with each person. We know that, but yeah, it's wow.
All right, Milton is expected to make landfall, as we mentioned, there on the west coast, but the Flagler County coast will also be seeing some impacts.
Yeah, WESH 2's Pamela Combe continues our live team coverage from Flagler Beach this morning, and I can't believe there's already a pool of water there behind you there along the beach.
There is, and this parking lot right here does tend to flood with heavy rains, and there is some standing water because we got about 5 inches of rain here since Saturday. But if you're already seeing this, I can't even imagine with those 8 to 10 inches of rain that are coming through the end of the week, what this could mean for the area. I imagine that water will begin to spill over to the roads and for those other areas that are so saturated already. I mean, it'll continue to rain and flood, and the water will get into people's homes. Add to that, here in Flagler, they are preparing for possibly 3 to 5 feet of storm surge on the coast and intercoastal. That storm surge is even more concerning during high tide, and it could lead again to localized flooding, water in people's homes. And residents, they are securing their properties. Some know they'll be fine, but they worry for others.
With these people here, as you go coming across the bridge, it's only 2 or 3 feet right now between the high tide on the canals and their homes. I mean, it's really, I guess they say it floods all the time, but these poor people, they're not going to survive a 5-foot storm surge. It's really too bad.
The county did say evacuation orders could be coming soon. Those living in mobile homes and coastal communities should prepare to move. The county plans to open Rimfire Elementary School as their primary pet-friendly shelter. And the county does plan to hold a press conference today at 4 p.m. We, of course, will bring you those updates right here on WESH. Reporting in Flagler Beach, Pamela Combe, WESH 2 News.
Pamela, thank you. We want to take you to Osceola County now, where people started lining up very early this morning to start getting sandbags to protect their property.
So there are 2 sandbag locations there in Osceola County. The larger one is at the Osceola Heritage Park, and that's where we find WESH 2's Christina Watkins. Christina, we know last time we checked in with you earlier this morning, before the location had even opened, there was a line of cars out the door. It looks already very busy.
Sonica, very busy is sort of like an understatement. I got to tell you, I've never seen a sandbag site in all my years of covering hurricanes, from New Orleans to back here at home. I've never seen a sandbag site this packed. From both ends of Osceola Heritage Park, you can see there are cars lined up in every corner of this parking lot. The first homeowner got here around 4 o'clock this morning, and the gates opened a little after 7 o'clock. It has been non-stop ever since. There are several sand piles scattered throughout the park for people to pull up and get at least 25 bags per household. And as you look here, you can see people are using every bit of tool they can find. They've got shovels, they've got buckets right here to scoop up the sand, even what looks like buckets you use in your home, in your bathroom, containers, anything at all to make sure they are prepared for potential flooding. We know a lot of homeowners here in Osceola County experienced that during Ian 2 years ago, so they do not want to take any chances. If we swing around this way, you can see a bigger sand pile. The one we were just showing you is starting to wind down a little bit, but there are several others for people to choose from. Sunday, we're told the county gave out more than 100,000 sandbags. Yesterday, they gave out more than 120,000, and today, that is expected to be the same as long as supplies last. This site is supposed to close today at noon, but things are starting to wind down throughout Osceola Heritage Park. We will be here talking to people who just say, hey, we're not going to take any chances. They saw what happened with Helene, not necessarily here, but our friends on the coast. They experienced what happened with Ian, and they do not want that to happen again. Live in Osceola County, Christina Watkins. Guys, back to you.
Christina touched on something that I think it's resonating with so many people. You know, people are paying attention to these storms. Yes. I think gone are the days of Floridians being like, oh, it's just this, it's just that. No, no, no. We've seen the impacts of this on our neighbors and people in our family, and everyone's taking the storm seriously.
Well, unfortunately, it's the result of so many devastating storms in years past. Here is a look at the path of Hurricane Milton as it stands right now. This is based on the latest advisory. You know, hurricane hunters are flying in and out of the right now Category 4 storm. Not only are we going to get a check with our meteorologists after the break, but we will also talk about that Gas Buddy app that we were telling you about earlier, which could help your preparations.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Milton.
All right, we've been telling you about folks in the Tampa Bay area, St. Pete region, Bradenton area who have to evacuate because of the storm surge concerns. We do have some evacuations in Central Florida, but not as many as along the coast.
There is certainly a sense of urgency here from the roads to the stores. WESH 2's Spencer Tracy is in Seminole County, where some of those evacuees will shelter in Sanford.
People here in Seminole County are hunkering down for this hurricane. They're getting their supplies at their grocery store and their gas. Now, we are also seeing people coming to hotels, a lot of evacuees from Tampa, as well as all over from the coast. We talked to one family from St. Petersburg who says they're trying to get as far away as possible.
We're in Zone B, so we have a mandatory evacuation. When Helene came through, destroyed pretty much the whole beach side of it. We're only 5 minutes away from there, so I'm expecting the same outcome, unfortunately.
Every pump at Wawa was filled with people getting gas before the sun was even up. Hotels are busy as well and filling up fast.
But it's just material stuff, you know. At the end of the day, it's insured. Lives are not insured, so, you know, we'll build back up, so.
Residents are also rushing to the grocery store to get the essentials. Some have experienced hurricanes before, and they say with this one, they're not taking any chances.
A little nervous, actually. Not so much for myself, but a lot of friends and family. It's going to affect hundreds of thousands of people. This has us a little worried.
So I want to make sure that I'm prepared, just a little more wary and cautious these days, since I have a memory of losing our roof and trees and limbs and power for about a week, I think it was.
This Publix in Sanford says they're expecting to get another shipment of water and plan to have enough supply throughout the entire day. For now, I'm reporting in Sanford, I'm Spencer Tracy, WESH 2 News.
All right, we've seen long lines at gas stations and some gas stations running out of gas, but then we've also seen them getting refilled.
All right, so if you download the Gas Buddy app, it's normally just a helpful place to find nearby gas stations or check on prices. But in this case, we want to pay close attention to the icons on your screen. They indicate whether the gas station is out of gasoline or out of diesel. And we have a quick screen recording to show you. This is what the app looks like when you open it. You can click Find Gas. From there, you can look at the nearby gas stations in a list, or you can use the map view and move around. Again, you are looking for those icons to indicate that they're out.
All right, we're seeing people making the plans. They are doing the preparation for today, and it's for good reason.
Yeah, we've got a very strong hurricane, Category 4 storm. Recon is investigating. More than likely, storm gets stronger today and then starts weakening again as it approaches our west coast as a Category 3.
Yeah, it could be a borderline Cat 4 on that approach towards the Tampa Bay area. But we were talking about the gas, and I think I need to download the app, right? I was out getting gas yesterday, and to be honest, there was no line because there was no gas. I had to try about 4 different stations before I found one that I could finally pick up from. So I know that people are working hard to get the preparation done, but just want to remind you guys to download the app. Also, just get gas ahead of time before we run out.
Yes, I wasn't going to do it. I was going to bypass because I ended up waiting, and I was on the phone with my dad, and he's like, just get it now. And I'm glad I got it yesterday when I did, because there's just going to be an even bigger run up today.
So looking ahead to the next 24 hours, we've got time before this storm system arrives in Florida. That shoreline you see on the bottom of the screen, that's the Yucatan Peninsula. So it's way out there still, all right? I think by about noon tomorrow, we should be where we will be to ride the storm out. Winds are at 145 miles an hour, so it is still a very powerful major hurricane. Minimum central pressure at 929 millibars. Hurricane Center puts out their next advisory within about an hour or so, just before 11 o'clock. But notice it's not moving a ton. It's just kind of slowly working. Officially, it's moving to the east-northeast at 12. I think it's probably slowed down just a little bit from there. Visible satellite presentation really showing its development of a new eye wall, and once it clears that eye, which will happen at some point later today, we will see that intensification begin yet again. So in terms of Central Florida, let's just discuss those impacts, right? In addition to the winds and the tornado threat and everything, let's just go down even further, right? Who is expecting to see power outages? I think we'll see widespread power outages through the Nature Coast and the Tampa Bay area through Polk County. But for the Orlando metro area, highlighted in orange, from essentially St. Augustine all the way down through the Space Coast, power outages are likely. It's not going to be completely widespread, but a lot of us are going to have the unfortunate experience of having a couple of hours or a couple of days without power. Storm surge, a significant concern. Storm surge warnings in effect for the West Coast, and storm surge warnings also in effect for Volusia, Flagler counties, and then back over to Lake George, where we could be talking about some spray over from the lake there itself. Storm surge watch in effect here in Brevard County, and it's for good reason. Take a look along the Tampa Bay area down through the sun coast of Florida, expecting an oversurge, a storm surge rise of 10 to 15 feet. Now, I'm not a tall guy. I'm 5 feet 8 inches, but when you figure you're talking more than 2 of me high, you get an idea for the inundation Tampa Bay residents right on the water are going to have to deal with. But even as it passes through on the other side, along the Brevard, Volusia, and Flagler County coasts, we're still talking about that water rise running 2 to 5 feet, 3 to 5 feet, kind of depending on exactly where you are. So storm surge on both shorelines is a significant concern. And at the end of the day, it all has to do with the wind direction and the wind speed. Let's get over to meteorologist Marquise Mita with an hour-by-hour breakdown of that and the rain using our own in-house Futurecast.
We're going to pick things up on Wednesday morning. We see those first few rain showers. The wind speeds, though, still negligible. Not tropical storm force quite yet, but they will pick up quickly in the afternoon, and so will the rainfall accumulation. So here we are at 12:30. This is the time frame in which I want you to have all of your preparation finalized, because you're about 12 hours away from the landfall, and quickly we see the wind speeds continue to rise. We'll jump ahead now. Between the afternoon, that's when the tropical storm force winds will be widespread right here in central Florida. We see those gusts of 35 miles per hour or greater from Claremont in Lake County all the way to Volusia County. 36-mile-per-hour gusts out towards New Smyrna Beach. We see the extensive rain, and with these outer bands surrounding the eye, we could also have some severe weather heading our way. We're talking about tornado warnings, possible spin-ups taking place as we draw closer to landfall. Here we are overnight, transitioning to Thursday morning. That's when we see Milton come on shore, and surrounding it are strong, gusty winds. Now that eye will run almost parallel to the I-4 corridor. Here's a look at the latest track, right? We see it rising to the north and the east. Take a look at what we got going on in Winter Haven. Wind speeds gusting up to 90 miles per hour, and surrounding it, we still see winds of hurricane force strength. Even after it does push off towards the Atlantic, winds are still tropical storm force strength across our coastal communities, which is why we have those storm surge warnings in place, where the storm surge could rise between 3, maybe even 5 feet for parts of Flagler and also Volusia County. As we take a look at the severe weather threat, we mentioned that the center is going to cross over just south of I-4, and even to the north of I-4, we still have the chance for some tornadic potential. We're not going to necessarily be directly in that right front quadrant, but with those outer bands, the first few spinning before possible landfall, we could possibly see a spin up. We're talking about an EF0 to an EF2. Typically, these are short-lived and rain-wrapped, and they will be happening overnight as well, so they will be hard to see. You'll have to make sure you have your weather apps downloaded just so you can continue to get alerts. On top of that, we'll have a flood threat that's going to be widespread here across central Florida, where we see this magenta shaded polygon here stretching from I-75 to parts of I-95 out towards Volusia County. That's where flooding could be extreme with the rain coming down and the saturation that we've already accumulated. So here's a last look at the timeline. Wednesday afternoon, you need to have your storm preparation wrapped up because the winds start to increase by Wednesday night. Hurricane conditions move on shore, and then throughout the day on Thursday, we'll watch Milton rise to the south, to the north and the east, bringing the hurricane impacts right here into central Florida. So please heed to the timeline. Make sure that all your preparation is done by Wednesday at noon, because conditions will be taking a turn for the worst following that. But stay with us here on WESH. We'll have more on Hurricane Milton coming up.
Milton continues.
Yep, we want to give you a live look right now at the storm itself. This is a powerful Category 4 hurricane. Right now, hurricane hunters are gathering more data, and we've got our team of meteorologists standing by to analyze that data and bring you the latest. We also have a team of our reporters we'll be checking in with.
You're watching continuing coverage of Milton from WESH 2.
People flocked to sandbag locations across Central Florida before the sun was up this morning. Look at the scene earlier today at Bithell Community Park. It actually opened because of popular demand very early this morning. People across our region aren't taking any chances with Hurricane Milton.
Milton still churning in the Gulf, bringing rain and wind to parts of Mexico. The storm moving slowly, but we will start to feel the effects within the coming days.
And we have team coverage for you as Florida preps for this hurricane. Our crews are spread out throughout Central Florida and all the way to Florida's west coast.
All right, we'll get to our crews in just a moment. We begin, though, with our first warning meteorologist, Kellyanne Klass and Marquise Mita, here with us this morning. The 10 o'clock hour, and of course, many people just tuning in, hoping for a change, but this thing remains on track.
Yeah, and you know, from the 11 o'clock advisory last night to the 2 o'clock, there was a subtle change, but it really wasn't by much. And we're noticing with each and every hour passing, things slowly start to get a little bit better, but the hurricane hunters are still finding strong winds. So regardless of whether it's a 5 or a 4, there's really not much of a change.
Yeah, we got that next advisory coming out at the next hour, right? And what I'm anticipating is that as we pull away from the Yucatan Peninsula and we start to get a little bit more sunlight, heat up, we might see those wind speeds increase, as you alluded to.
Yeah, and that's going to be at the 11 o'clock advisory new track. So we're anxiously waiting that to see what really is going to happen. But we know that the track hasn't really changed much. It's really going to focus on parts of the Sun Coast and then through Central Florida. So it'll just be interesting to see what the National Hurricane Center puts out. Okay, so Milton at the moment, winds of 145 miles per hour. Moving to the east-northeast at about 12 miles per hour. Pressures at 929 millibars. So this thing is still trying to hold on. still producing very strong winds, though, at the moment. So the hurricane hunters did pass through the eye wall, and they actually found at least Cat 2 strength winds. They may have even found Cat 5 strength winds, and they're approaching their second pass of the eye wall. So it'll be very telling to see what they find. Now, the 5 o'clock advisory, the 5 o'clock track shows this gradually strengthening to a Cat 5 hurricane tomorrow, or this afternoon rather, with winds of 160 miles per hour. Then starting tomorrow, gradually weakening as it starts to encounter some wind shear. Now, it is expected to make landfall as a major hurricane early Thursday morning and then off of our coastline by Thursday afternoon. Now, when we look at our models are pretty much in alignment with the track. When we actually focus on the National Hurricane Center track, it's been pretty consistent over the past 5 tracks, moving through the Sun Coast, through Orlando, through parts of Central Florida. Now, when we look at the current track to the latest track, there has really been no shift. So we're very confident that there hasn't been a shift in this, and there's not really going to be a big changing shift with that 11 o'clock track. What we do know, our tornado threat will begin to increase, and that's really going to be tomorrow once we get some of those outer rain bands working in from Milton. And then eventually tomorrow night, early Thursday morning is when we start to watch the heavy rainfall settle in, Marquise, and flooding is going to be a big concern.
Absolutely. And as you alluded to, consistency breeds confidence. And with the last 2 tracks, we could get a better outline of what the impacts are going to be right here in Central Florida. A major one, of course, will be the flood threat. We had mentioned that we are rather saturated for the month of October. Many cities in a surplus for rainfall accumulation, and we are dumping down heavy rainfall with Milton coming ashore tomorrow nights and then across Thursday. So where we see this purple shaded polygon, that magenta color touching every single one of our counties here in Central Florida, that's where flooding is to be expected. Our northernmost communities could see pockets of rain between 8 and 12 inches. Towards the south, not as much rain, but you will see stronger and gustier winds. But no matter where you are here in Central Florida, know that Milton is going to be a monstrous storm, likely making landfall as a Cat 3. Possibly even a Cat 4. Now, before it makes landfall, what I want you to do is wrap up all of your hurricane pre-planning. By 12 o'clock in the afternoon, 12 o'clock noon on Wednesday, you got to be locked in because you're about 12 hours away from landfall, and the worst of the storm, that's going to occur overnight with Milton coming on shore, then rising to the north and the east. So we'll take you through a few of our counties right now. Across Polk County, this is where we could possibly see some of the fastest winds. Now, the latest track has the eye moving across Polk, and we could see the gustier conditions surrounding the eye of 90+ mile-per-hour winds. On top of that, 4 to 7 inches of rain, so you're in that hurricane warning because we're less than 36 hours away from those hurricane impacts of those strong and gusty wind conditions. To the north, more rain across I-75 into Bushnell, Rutland, the Villages. Here you can see rainfall accumulation possibly anywhere between 5 to 8 inches, and local maybe reports showing 10+ inches of precipitation. That's Wednesday night through Thursday morning that we're expecting the worst of the weather. And we'll take you through one more county, this being Seminole. Wind speeds can gust up to 80 miles per hour, but here still across I-4, you can see 5 to 8 inches of rainfall coming your way. So we have widespread impacts across each and every one of our counties here in Central Florida. And I'll continue to take you county by county coming up next time I see you.
All right, Marquise. Communities across Florida are starting what could be the state's largest evacuation since 2017.
And that's actually good to see because it means people are taking this seriously. We want to make sure you know all of the risks so you and your family prepare. Right now, most of the West Coast is evacuating residents in at-risk areas. So that includes St. Petersburg and Tampa, where a catastrophic storm surge is expected to lead to a lot of flooding.
And closer inland, Volusia is issuing evacuation orders starting at 8 tomorrow morning for all areas east of the Intercoastal Waterway, manufactured and mobile homes, campsites and RV parks, and low-lying areas, along with other parts of the county prone to flooding. Volusia County is also implementing a curfew from 8 tomorrow night until 8 on Thursday morning. Now, Marion County has also issued evacuation orders for anyone living in mobile homes, RVs, modular-type dwellings, and anyone who feels unsafe. County leaders want you to know if you live in these homes and stay there, emergency responders aren't going to go to your location until it is safe for them to do so. So they are saying, listen to these evacuation orders. And as Hurricane Milton moves closer to the west coast of Florida, one of the top concerns is debris. And it's still left around after Hurricane Helene that impacted the Tampa Bay area just 12 days ago.
Governor Ron DeSantis says crews are working around the clock to get it removed before Milton hits the Sunshine State. WESH 2's Megan Mackey is live from St. Petersburg this morning for us, where huge piles of debris are piling up as people finish their final preps. A lot of work cut out for them there, Megan.
Yeah, you can see this huge pile of debris behind me. This is at a dump site in St. Petersburg. This is really showing you the magnitude of the damage that was done during Helene because of that storm surge. Now, many of the items and yard waste has to be cleaned up, of course. And as the storm moves in, this is becoming a much bigger concern. We heard Governor Ron DeSantis just talk about that a couple of hours ago during his press conference. It's been less than 2 weeks since Helene impacted Tampa Bay, so work is still being done, but Ron DeSantis says that he did send extra crews here to make sure that this work was a top priority for Pinellas County. With those strong winds and even higher storm surge projected for St. Pete as Hurricane Milton moves forward, neighbors and crews are wasting no time.
If you haven't been here during a real hurricane with a strong storm surge, it's hard to even comprehend what it's like. But you know, it's real, so don't think it's not.
Now, that man said he was up to about his chest in water from the storm surge from Helene, and he's definitely concerned about Milton. About 500,000 residents in Pinellas County are currently under mandatory evacuation orders right now, and law enforcement are urging people who live here to listen to those warnings. Some people told me they're opting to stay, while others have already left. Now, in terms of this debris, obviously a big concern. Crews here have been gracious enough to let us film, and while they're trying to get this work done, we're staying out of their way. But I did ask them, you know, where's all this debris going to go? And they told me that they had no comment. Reporting live in St. Pete, Megan Mackey, WESH 2 News.
All right. Officials keep saying over and over again, mobile homes are especially vulnerable during this storm.
That's why Orange County Fire Rescue is actually going door to door, giving out critical safety information. WESH 2's Bob Hazen is live right alongside them in Orlando. Bob, this is so important. You have more on how crews are helping this particular community get ready.
Yeah, this was the first stop for those Orange County firefighters, and they've been going around handing out these flyers to people living in these mobile homes, giving them information and warning them about the dangers of what we could be seeing with this hurricane when it gets actually here to Central Florida. Now, this is the Fairways Country Club community on East Colonial Drive, and they're not really singling this neighborhood out. It's no more at risk than any other neighborhood, but they are trying to get to all the mobile home communities throughout Orange County. Dozens of Orange County firefighters have been out here. They went door to door handing out the flyers to people who live here, and they have information about getting to shelters and evacuating, plus how to stay safe before and after the storm. And we're told that they're doing it because mobile homes are especially vulnerable during a hurricane.
You know, the recommendation is to make the best decision for you. Some people feel, well, I've been through storms before. Every storm is different. This one seems to be one that's going to be of historically high winds, historically high amount of rain. We've had rain producing hurricanes in the past and wind producing hurricanes in the past. This one's combined.
And again, Orange County Fire Rescue is planning to do this in all mobile home parks all over the county, not just here. They say there are 8,500 of these mobile homes throughout the county, so a lot of footwork for them to do. The county does have 14 emergency shelters that are going to be open during the storm for people who feel like they need to get out of their homes and go somewhere safe to ride out the hurricane. Reporting live in East Orange County, Bob Hazen, WESH 2 News.
All right, Bob. Many people are being ordered to evacuate. And with that comes impacts to our roads. So let's bring in Meredith McDonough now. And Meredith, you've been closely monitoring the traffic situation and our roads. There are some areas that are really jammed right now.
Yeah, Jason, really I-75, we're seeing that if you're in like the Wildwood area heading up towards Marion County, things are slow going. So really we're seeing people leave certain areas in anticipation of Hurricane Milton, especially in the Tampa St. Pete locations where evacuations are underway near the coastline. Let's take a look at our DOT cams here. So for instance, this is a traffic cam. This is I-75 northbound at mile marker 326. 6. Again, this is Wildwood, Sumterville areas, but look at this. Folks trying to get out of town, slow going. You got the truckers on the roads, in addition to just families trying to make their way north. We have been seeing evacuations all morning and steady delays. There was a crash in Sumter County earlier this morning on I-75 northbound, just near mile marker 324. That's this location. This spot has started to clear. The right shoulder was blocked and was really slow going, but now things are looking better there. Now, mandatory evacuation orders for coastal areas and low-lying areas have already been issued for Hernando, Pasco, Hillsborough, Manatee, Sarasota, and Charlotte counties. So that's really where we're seeing these folks go, and folks here in Central Florida that maybe just want to, say, I'm just going to ride this thing out somewhere a little more comfortably and want to head north. They're also hopping on the interstate and going. Now, Central Florida, West Florida, and Alligator Alley, near the attractions, I-4 eastbound at mile marker 64, traffic is building there big time. So we're just going to keep monitoring our interstates to see how they're looking throughout the day, because yes, it is getting busy out there. If you're heading to your location, just try to be patient. Give those drivers on the roadway some grace. Jason, Nancy, over to you guys.
All right. Thanks, Meredith. Our team coverage continues with the evacuation orders, urging people to get out of harm's way. As we see so many, Meredith, were just showing us, they're doing it.
Yeah, and it's good to see, actually. And here's why this monster storm on track to move right across Central Florida. We're following the very latest models coming up after the break.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Milton.
As people in Tampa evacuate, residents on the opposite side of the state are actually doing the same.
Yeah, people in Volusia County, they know all too well what can happen with storm surge. It really can wreak havoc. WESH 2's Tonight Gabrigaticus joins us live from Daytona Beach, and tonight there's an evacuation order, and this is for everyone living east of the Intracoastal Waterway.
Yeah, which is where we're at right now. I mean, just look at how strong the high tide is behind me. The sand has been pushed out so far. It's reaching the parking lot. You can see those waves are crashing. So, Jason, as you mentioned, the storm surge, just imagine how it's going to pick up even more in a couple of hours. And you see some people are just taking a walk here. There was a woman jogging earlier. I think they're just trying to get one final look before the conditions change, of course. And then we also saw Volusia County Beach Safety out here a few minutes ago. They told us that some baby sea turtles were washed out, so they were trying to protect them since they were getting calls about it. And they also placed a barrier here closing down the beach, although we are still seeing some people come here, and hopefully they're all gone and this is a ghost town by tomorrow, since, like you said, there is an evacuation order that starts tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. They're telling folks living in campsites, RVs, low-lying areas that are prone to flooding, and of course on the barrier island, to leave their homes because it is not safe and they don't want anyone near the coast with that storm surge we are expecting from Hurricane Milton. And they're also placing a curfew tomorrow night, and that will be lifted on Thursday morning. They just want to make sure that the roads are empty and no one is out when they should not be when this storm makes landfall. And of course, they have the sandbag sites up, spread out, about 4 in the county that people can go to if they need to make any last minute preps today before the storm comes in. And Mike Chitwood, the sheriff, he also sent out a stern warning to people earlier, letting them know that there will be a lot of wind, a lot of beach erosion. So he's just telling people, for anyone who has structures that are deemed possible to collapse or any unfinished repairs, they are in grave danger. So people should just leave their homes and make sure that they are in a safe place. We have the shelters listed on our website, WESH.com. For now, reporting live in Volusia County, Snika Brigadigas, WESH 2 News.
Yeah, we're just imagining what it will look like there with that storm surge. And as we bring in meteorologist Kellyanne Klass and Marquise Mita now, well, let's talk about that, what it could mean for where tonight is.
You know, I really think the biggest takeaway is going to be this is not going to happen during the storm when it's moving across Central Florida. It's going to be after the storm moves off the coastline, because we're going to have those strong onshore winds. And then we're looking at that storm surge and that flooding potential.
Absolutely. And that storm surge could be 3 to 5 feet. Now, just a moment ago, off camera, we were talking about 2022, referencing Ian and Nicole. And I think it was 47 days that separated those two storms, right? But on the western side of Florida with Helene and now Milton, that's about a 14-day stretch in which we're going to be breaking records in terms of storm surge across the western coast, especially in the Tampa Bay region.
We can't talk about this enough because there's so much focus on the West Coast and our western counties. So I'm so glad that we're continuing to put that focus on our eastern counties and really understanding the science of this whole thing, right, and how it works.
Yeah, we really need to talk about it, just because even though the storm's going to be technically over with for most of Central Florida, it's still going to be those coastal impacts afterwards. So just keep that in consideration. When the rain is done, the strongest winds are done, it's going to be our coastline as the focus. Let's get you to the look at Milton at the moment. 8 a.m. advisory, not quite the 11 o'clock advisory yet, but Milton still winds of 145 miles per hour, pressure down to 929 millibars. Does not look that impressive right now. And actually, before, about a couple of hours ago, it looks like it was trying to carve out an eye, but conditions actually may just be perfect to where it's starting to weaken that eye. And when we look at our visible satellite, we don't see any clear-cut eye, which is great. Now, we still see convection bubbling around the center of circulation, but at least we're not seeing a well-defined eye. Now, the hurricane hunters doing some passes through the storm. They still have found very strong winds, waiting on the official word from the National Hurricane Center if they can confirm these 2 passes with Category 5 strength and Category 5 status. So we're waiting on that confirmation from the National Hurricane Center. But that is the forecast later today to become a Cat 5 hurricane with winds of 160 miles per hour by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But then as it gets closer to Florida, weakening to a Cat 4 hurricane, but still a major hurricane upon landfall Thursday morning with winds of 125 miles per hour. And then moving off our coastline as a Category 1. So as it moves off the coastline, we'll start to decrease our rainfall. But again, we'll have those counterclockwise winds, which is just going to bring those battering waves along our coastline. So it's going to deteriorate our shores and we'll have that storm surge potential. Let's at least talk about what's going to happen over the next 24 hours to 36 hours. Today, we just have some showers, but starting tomorrow afternoon, we'll have some outer rain bands working on in, but it's really going to be tomorrow evening that the worst of the rain bands move in. And this is where we're going to be concerned about the potential of tornadic activity, tornadoes spinning up, heavy rainfall, and Milton didn't even make landfall yet. That's going to arrive again early Thursday morning, where we'll be dealing with a lot of the rain, especially on the northern end of that eye wall. So for our tornado threat, this is going to be tomorrow. There will be several tornadoes. We really need to pay attention to that forecast tomorrow, late afternoon into the evening hours. In terms of rainfall amounts, I want to show you this from the Weather Prediction Center. They're forecasting 7 to 10 inches of precipitation with locally higher amounts. But I want to show you our two major models, GFS European, both also showing from I-4 and Northwest very high rainfall amounts. But the latest GFS I find pretty significant. It's highlighting a ribbon of rainfall between 12 to 18 inches of precipitation. Not saying that will happen, but it just goes to show you underneath some of those heavier downpours, we could get a lot of rain. And for that reason, flash flooding is going to be expected tomorrow. And it's not just across central Florida. Or excuse me, it's not just across the metro, but it's across most of central Florida. For more on the broad impacts, let's get over to Marquise Mida.
Kellyanne, I think that rainfall is going to be one of the biggest impacts that we'll see here in central Florida, but the impacts will be widespread. We talked about that severe weather risk. We could see multiple tornadic spin-ups, especially with that right front quadrant of the hurricane moving nearly parallel to the I-4 corridor. Also, on the back end of Milton, storm surge is going to rise. We have storm surge warnings in effect for Volusia, also Flagler County, as we do see coastal flooding. Those surf conditions could be anywhere between 3 to 5 feet, and we know that storm surge is one of the most impactful, oftentimes the most deadly impact when it comes to any tropical system. We'll walk you through the wind speeds, though, and we'll see those pick up throughout the afternoon on Wednesday. By Wednesday, let's say 3 o'clock, we've got tropical storm force winds across parts of Polk County at 35 miles per hour or greater in Winter Haven. And then as we draw closer to the overnight hours, that's when wind speeds really start to ramp up as you get closer to that landfall time. Overnight Wednesday and into the early morning hours on Thursday. Check this out. Wind speeds gusting up to 90 miles per hour. So strong Category 1 force winds rushing onshore, borderline Cat 2 winds as well. And surrounding that eye, that's where we're going to have the fastest winds. And we see this track taking it basically just parallel to I-4, running towards the north and the east. And then after it pulls out to sea, still breezy across Palm Coast, Daytona Beach, and it's the winds that increase the storm surge, which is why we have those warnings in effect currently. Taking you through the timeline right now, squalls start to increase Wednesday afternoon. Wednesday overnight, that's when we see the worst conditions across central Florida. We'll have that risk for severe weather, possible tornadic spin-ups, hurricane force gusts. Those conditions will be likely Wednesday night and into the morning on Thursday. But for right now, get your preparation done. We're taking a look at the tower cam. We're trending dry in Daytona. We started off the morning with a few showers. Got a couple of those off of Palm Coast into Flagler Beach right now. Light precipitation, and will be light to moderate throughout the rest of the day. But use this time wisely to get prepared, because we're less than 48 hours from Milton making landfall, in which the impacts will be widespread across central Florida. But stay with us as we continue to track Milton coming up after the break.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Milton.
All right, thanks for staying with us. And we actually have an important note for people who have an electric car. You need to be prepared for possible flooding. It won't just destroy your vehicle, it can actually create dangerous situations.
We saw it happen during Hurricane Helene. A Tesla suddenly burst into flames. Do you remember this video? We showed it to you on WESH 2 News. That was in a garage after it was flooded. This happened 16 times, officials say, during Helene. Saltwater can corrode the battery and cause it to catch fire, so you'll want to wait several days before trying to charge your electric vehicle. Stay with us. We continue our coverage of Milton after this quick break.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Milton.
And we're continuing to stay on top of the track of this hurricane as Milton moves through the Gulf near the Yucatan Peninsula.
This is some of what the storm is bringing to Mexico. You can see people walking through flooded streets and strong winds moving through.
All right, we want to bring in our team of first warning meteorologists. We have with us Kellyanne Klass along with Marquise Mita. And we're talking about the storm's strength because kind of the expectation here is that it will again get back to Category 5 status.
Yeah, and we're waiting on the official word from the National Hurricane Center.
Half an hour.
For that 11 o'clock advisory. We'll also get not only just an intensity, but also a new track as well. Track has been pretty consistent, but the hurricane hunters are flying through the storm and finding strong winds.
Yeah, we actually found not just one, but two reports of Category 5 storm force winds. So it'll be interesting to see what the 11 o'clock advisory does. Likely the wind speeds will go up.
Yeah, so at least while we're waiting, let's look at what the 8 o'clock advisory has for us, right? Putting it into a satellite loop as well. Something I find interesting of note, very briefly tried to carve out an eye, but right now it's starting to get clouded up. So unsure if this is encountering some stronger wind shear or if this is still continuing its eye wall replacement cycle from there trying to strengthen. Regardless, it's still a very strong hurricane. Winds right now at 145 miles per hour. Patiently awaiting that 11 o'clock advisory. Forecast to become a Category 5 hurricane today, this afternoon, with winds of 160 miles per hour. And then as it gets closer to the peninsula of Florida starting tomorrow morning. It gradually begins to weaken as it does encounter more wind shear in these locations. So then by Thursday morning, making landfall as a major hurricane, then crossing over the peninsula and moving off of our east coast by Thursday afternoon. Here's a look at that data from the hurricane hunters. They did 2 passes through the eye wall. The first pass finding at least Cat 5 winds. Same thing with that second pass, but again, we're just waiting on that official word from the National Hurricane Center. So what you need to know today, finish your preps. If you have off from school, off from work, finish those preps this late morning, going into the afternoon and this evening. Tomorrow we'll start to get some of those outer rain bands working on in, but Marquise, really the worst of the weather is going to arrive later on tomorrow.
Yeah, in the afternoon, we can start to see the wind speeds pick up across central Florida. And then overnight, that's when the hurricane force winds will be arriving. With Milton's landfall late Wednesday night and throughout the overnight hours on Thursday, with that eye coming on shore, multiple areas will report winds of 90 plus, maybe even 110 miles per hour across Polk County and Winter Haven. The latest model projections do show that eye moving towards the north and the east, and that's where we could have some of our fastest winds, and that's where we're also going to show the best chance for any power outages as well. Those will be numerous and widespread across Florida with those strong gusty winds overnight Wednesday and into the day on Thursday. So let's take you through the worst weather arrival times where we have this orange shaded region here. That's going to be late on Wednesday night. We'll start to see those wind speeds pick up, those outer bands surrounding the eye. That's where we can see gusts of Category 1 force strength or even stronger, basically west of I-75 and encompassing parts of Polk County as well. This yellow shaded region's a little bit later. That's just before midnight that we can start to see the wind speeds start to pick up. And then throughout the overnight hours, we'll really see that eye come on shore and increase your winds from Winter Haven through Kissimmee and parts of the metro as well. Likely going to see wind speeds gusting upwards of 80 miles per hour. And that green shaded region, that's going to be the overnight hours that we expect the worst of the winds to arrive. So as we take you through county by county, take a look at this. Maximum gusts for Lake County could possibly be 85 miles per hour or greater. On top of that, rain is going to be an issue. All of Central Florida is under a flood watch right now, and we can see pockets of rain between 4 and 8 inches. Now, as we head further out towards the east in the metro, 5 to 8 inches of rain. Maximums gusts could be up to 85 miles per hour in Orange County. And we'll wrap it up with one more county here is Volusia County. Still on the back end of Milton, we could possibly see storm surge increasing after it moves into the Atlantic. We'll continue to take you county by county, though, coming up in the next 15 minutes.
All right, we need to get you to Osceola County now. We're going to get an update on the storm situation there.
All right, let's listen into this news conference underway now.
Okay, is everybody ready? All right. So we're going to go ahead and begin. Good morning. I'm Osceola County Commissioner Viviana Janer. As Hurricane Milton continues to strengthen and make its way towards Central Florida, our emergency management team is preparing for the storm's impact. I'm joined by Bill Linton, Osceola County Emergency Management Director, City Manager Mike Steigerwald from the City of Kissimmee, Mayor Nathan Blackwell from the City of St. Cloud, Dr. Mark Shanoff, Superintendent of the School District of Osceola County, our Osceola County Sheriff Marcos Lopez, and Tiffany Henderson, Director of Corporate Communications for KUA. Thank you all for being here. As of this morning, the Emergency Operations Center moved to Level 1 activation. Again, we moved to Level 1 activation as of this morning. For specific storm-related questions, our Citizen Information Center can be reached at 407-742-0000. That line is now open 24 hours a day until further notice. For automatic updates, please text the word altogether, Alert Osceola, that's one word, Alert Osceola, to 888-777. All City of Kissimmee, City of St. Cloud, and Osceola County curbside trash collection services for Wednesday, October 9th and Thursday, October 10th are canceled. We want to remind everyone to please take care in securing all garbage carts and removing any bulk items as well as yard waste from the curb before the storm approaches. We know that this is an election season. There's still a lot of political signs throughout the county. We want to remind all political candidates and campaigns to remove signs that can become projectiles. If you have one in your yard, please remove that one as well. This is really your final full day to prepare for the impacts from Milton. We advise everyone to have their preparations complete, be off the roads, and in a safe place where you can plan to ride out the storm by noon on Wednesday. A joint team from Osceola County, the City of Kissimmee, and the City of St. Cloud is wrapping up the sandbag operations after distributing more than 300,000 sandbags since Saturday. Currently, no evacuations are in effect for Osceola County. We will open several shelters throughout the county at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Again, that's 8 a.m. tomorrow for residents who feel that they need a safer place to ride out the storm. The complete list is posted on osceola.org and the county's social media channels. A shelter for those with special medical needs will open at 3 p.m. today at the Osceola Council on Aging at 700 Generation Point in Kissimmee. Again, that special needs shelter opens today at 3 p.m. We are also opening a shelter just for residents of Good Samaritan Village at Central Avenue Elementary School. Again, this is only for the residents of Good Samaritan Village, and that opens today at 5 p.m. Again, general population shelters open tomorrow at 8 a.m. That's because there's been a little bit of confusion. As a reminder, the City of Kissimmee and City of St. Cloud and Osceola County government offices will also be closed Wednesday and Thursday. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Bill Linton, our Emergency Management Director, and I will be back with the message in Spanish. Bill?
Thank you, Commissioner. As the latest advisory, Milton has maximum sustained winds of 150 miles an hour, making it a powerful Category 4. And it will, as you will see today, go back to a Category 5 before lowering itself before making that turn north toward the west coast of Florida. This storm is forecast to still remain a powerful hurricane before approaching the west coast of Florida and impacting Osceola County Wednesday evening. With that being said, our impacts here are going to be threefold. First is the wind field that we will experience here. Our hurricane warning was pushed out yesterday by National Hurricane Center and National Weather Service Melbourne. This is very important for our residents to understand. The wind fields here are categories that there will be some damaging winds wrapped into these rain bands coming through. We're looking at plus 75 miles per hour, and some of the rain bands that will be going across on the I-4 corridor will be over 100 miles per hour gust. So we need our residents to take place, use today as the last day of planning. Also, additionally, right now we've been monitoring the water and rainfall amounts. We're still looking at a rainfall amount of 3 to 6 inches based on forecast. Currently also working with our partners from South Florida Water Management District on our lakes and our water capacity here. And we're in good capacity moving forward for the next period of time, even after forecasted landfall of this storm. So I do want to let the group know about that as well. Also, I want to highlight, as this moves across Wednesday through Thursday, it's going to go Wednesday evening will be our critical mass time, just in that period of time, evening and Thursday morning. This will be an overnight event for us, so we will not have daylight times. So I encourage all of our residents to be off the roads by 12 noon tomorrow, Wednesday. Please, we do not need individuals or families driving on the roads after that time. The tropical force winds of 35 mile plus will be elevated in the afternoon. So we need you to be safe and be in your safe place by that time. Additionally, overnight, we have a high threat as well as the squall bands come through, 4 additional tornadoes as well added into those bands. So I just want to highlight the critical nature of this storm. It is a serious case. We want our residents to continue their preparations today, wrap those up by 7 p.m. tonight, and be ready in your safe place tomorrow to ride out the storm. With that, I'd like to turn it over to City Manager Mike Steigerwall from the City of Kissimmee.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning, everyone. As we closely monitor Hurricane Milton, I want to ensure our residents that the City of Kissimmee is fully prepared to respond to any of the impacts from the storm. As city departments have activated their emergency plans, this is the largest collection of personnel that the city has ever pre-staged during a storm event, with over 200 employees that will be mobilized during the storm to focus on storm impacts and to respond as soon as the winds die down enough for us to be able to do so. This includes over 70 fire personnel and 17 apparatus, 120 police personnel, and 4 teams ready to remove debris from roadways that will be strategically placed throughout various parts of the city. So no matter where you live, you will have a team within close proximity to respond immediately following the worst of the storm's impacts. We're also utilizing pumping equipment and have coordinated with the South Florida Water Management District to secure pre-approval for any necessary pumping operations that will be necessary should we see flooding in impacted neighborhoods. Key resources, including rescue boats and high water rescue vehicles, are in place strategically to enhance our stormwater management systems. Our emergency stockpiles are fully met, and we are ready to handle any situation that may arise. We urge residents to visit kissimmee.gov/prepare and follow our social media channels for the latest updates and safety tips. Staying informed through trusted news sources is critical for all of our residents. We're committed to keeping the public safe and informing you of everything before, during, and after the storm that you need to know to be safe, as your safety is our top priority. In closing, I want to thank our community for your cooperation and your preparedness as the storm approaches. Together, we will navigate through Hurricane Milton. Stay safe, stay informed, and let's look out for one another. And now I'd like to introduce the Mayor for the City of St. Cloud, Mr. Nathan Blackwell.
Well, it's kind of like a broken record. The city staff at St. Cloud is certainly working overtime to ensure that we are ready for this storm, both before and after. Our solid waste crews have been working overtime, putting all their available resources toward collecting as much of the items that have been placed curbside today as possible. But we do want you to know that tomorrow, Wednesday, there will be no solid waste collected. If your items are not collected today, please store them securely in a structure or near a structure if possible. Our transfer station will be open today until 4:30 p.m. Our Planning Commission meeting that was scheduled for tonight has been canceled, and our City Council meeting that was scheduled for Thursday night has been rescheduled for this coming Monday, October the 14th at 6:30 p.m. City offices will be closed, of course, Wednesday and Thursday. Again, as you already heard, we urge all of our residents, take this storm seriously. Don't take anything for granted. Finish your preparations today. Stay off the roads Wednesday and Thursday. You can follow our social media accounts and check our city website at stcloudfl.gov for updates. And St. Cloud residents, if you have questions, you can call our Citizens Information Line at 407-957-7161. I'll say that one more time, 407-957-7161, with any questions you may have. We encourage you to check on your neighbors, especially if they're elderly, or they're a single mom, or they may need assistance. Let's be there for each other. Let's use common sense, and let's stay safe, and you'll all be in our prayers. At this time, Mark Shanoff, the superintendent of our Osceola schools, will come.
Thank you, Mayor. At the request of the state and in reviewing the evacuations that were taking place from the west coast of Florida, we made the determination late yesterday to close schools for today. That includes all activities. Our board meeting that was scheduled for today has been rescheduled for October 22nd. That was going to be a special meeting that will now be a regular meeting of the school board on October 22nd. Schools will be closed today, schools will be closed tomorrow, and schools will be closed Thursday. District schools were open for employees this morning for an hour period for them to gather any items that they needed. It also allowed us to secure any items that weren't already permanently secured to the ground or to the building structures. The retention pond levels on our sites have been checked, and all are at acceptable levels or lower, and our drains are cleared. Our administrators of our shelter sites will be working with our emergency management partners to ensure we are properly staffed and resourced to serve throughout the storm. And I want to give a lot of credit to those administrators that are taking that opportunity to serve as shelter managers when they are now being separated from their families through the storm in order to be of service to our community. As the county's largest employer, we want to let everybody know who works for us that everything for payroll for next week is being handled today, so we will not be missing any payday. To our team members, our students, and our families, we want to encourage you to be safe. This is not anything that anyone needs to mess around with, joke about. This is a serious event, and we want everybody to be safe. So when school does return in session, all of our students are prepared to learn, all of our teachers are ready to teach, all of our employees are prepared to support the work that we do every single day. With that, I'd like to turn it over now to Sheriff Marcos Lopez.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. And, we have one job and one job to do. It's to maintain law and order, keep you safe, and we're going to still maintain that zero tolerance approach on any type of criminal activity. If you don't have to be out, don't be out, please. Most places will be closed, so you might have a full tank of gas, but there's probably no need for you to leave your house. And be patient. We still have time. There's still water. There's still gas at the stores. There's still food. We're patrolling these areas because there's people arguing, fighting over toilet paper. I mean, come on, let's be realistic. Let's help each other out. We'll get through this together, and no need for anyone to get arrested for any unnecessary reason, because if you have a family, who's going to take care of them if this storm affects their way of life or their house? So please be patient. We're still going to have no curfews at this time. And for the sexual offenders, people have asked where they're going to be housed. It's going to be at the courthouse, so you don't have to worry about them being in with your families or near your children. Price gouging is still illegal. If you see anybody raising the prices of any of these essential items, call us immediately. We're going to take action. So we're ready for this storm, and we're here to help. Like I said, let us do our job. You do yours by staying home, and let us keep you safe. And now I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany Henderson from KUA. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. KUA is ready to respond to Hurricane Milton. Our emergency stock levels for resources and supplies have been met, and the utility is ready to respond to any potential impacts from the storm. Milton is capable of causing widespread power outages. Mutual aid crews from Minnesota are currently en route to Kissimmee, and those 35 linemen are scheduled to arrive tonight to provide assistance to KUA with potential restoration efforts. An additional 42 linemen from Wisconsin are scheduled to arrive on Thursday. We're also utilizing assistance from 12 vegetation management crews from Rhode Island who are here conducting proactive tree trimming to minimize impacts to our above-ground facilities. This is in addition to our year-round tree trimming efforts. Once the storm passes, our crews will begin their damage assessment analysis. KUA crews are prepared to work long hours after the storm passes, restoring service to customers as quickly and as safely as possible. During major storms, KUA follows its 7-step power restoration process. Crews restore power by first repairing public safety and generation facilities, then transmissions lines, substations, and main distribution lines. Once the main power lines are repaired, crews then turn their attention to neighborhood tap lines and individual customer outages. Customers who experience power outages can report it quickly by texting the word OUT to 877-582-7700. This is the fastest way to notify KUA about your outage. Additionally, customers can access our outage map at kua.com/map. We also encourage customers to visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/mykua, for the latest restoration updates. An important safety reminder, do not touch fallen or low-hanging wires or anything they come in contact with. A seemingly harmless wire can still be energized. Also, stay away from puddles where downed power lines may have landed. Please call KUA at 407-933-9800 to report downed power lines.
Repeat that second number, please.
Please call KUA at 407-933-9800 to report downed power lines. Lastly, KUA's Customer Service Center will be closed Wednesday, October 9th and Thursday, October 10th. The Utilities Call Center will continue to operate during normal business hours on Wednesday and Thursday from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we just want to thank our customers ahead of this storm for their patience. And now I will turn it back over to the Commissioner.
Thank you very much, everybody. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to be repeating everything in Spanish. So I will go, and then Sheriff Lopez, and then we'll have Alibet wrap everybody else's comments up. So, muy buenos días. Soy la comisionada del Condado de Osceola, Viviana Janer. Mientras el huracán Milton sigue fortaleciéndose y se dirige hacia la Florida Central, nuestro equipo de manejo de emergencias se prepara para los impactos de la tormenta. Me acompañan hoy día el director del Centro de Manejo de Emergencias, Bill Linton, el administrador municipal Mike Steigerwald de la ciudad de Kissimmee, el alcalde Nathan Backwell de la ciudad de St. Cloud, Dr. Mark Shanoff, superintendente del Distrito Escolar del Condado de Osceola, y también nuestro alguacil del Condado de Osceola, Marcos López. También está la señora Tiffany Henderson, directora de Comunicaciones Corporativas de Kissimmee Utility Authority. Gracias a todos por estar aquí. Al partir de esta mañana, nuestro centro de operaciones de emergencia pasó a nivel 1 de activación. Para preguntas específicas, ciudadanos pueden llamar a nuestro centro de información al 407-742-0000. Esta línea está ahora abierta las 24 horas al día hasta nuevo aviso. También para actualizaciones envíe un mensaje con el texto con la frase Alert Osceola. Eso es una palabra. Alert Osceola al 888-777. Todos los servicios de recolección de basura de la ciudad de Kissimmee, de la ciudad de St. Cloud y del condado de Osceola han sido canceladas para el miércoles 9 de octubre y el jueves 10 de octubre. Queremos recordarle a todos que por favor tengan cuidado y aseguren sus contenedores de basura y residuos del jardín. No tengas nada en la acera a partir de mañana. Sabemos que la temporada de elecciones hay todavía muchos carteles y avisos políticos en todo el condado. Queremos recordar a los candidatos la necesidad de por favor remover estos carteles antes de que se conviertan en potenciales peligros en la vía. Por favor, si tienen uno también en su jardín, sácalo y éntralo. Nuestros trabajadores del condado de Osceola, la ciudad de Kissimmee y la ciudad de St. Cloud han distribuido más de 300,000 bolsas o sacos de arena desde el fin de semana. Actualmente no hay evacuaciones en efecto para el condado de Osceola. Vamos a abrir los refugios en todo el condado mañana a las 8 de la mañana para los residentes que se sienten que necesitan un lugar más seguro para pasar la tormenta. Nuevamente, esos albergues para...
All right, you've been listening to a news conference there underway in Osceola County. A lot of information there. We want to let you know we're going to put all of it on WESH.com, English and Spanish for people down there in Osceola. But we wanted to get out of there and come to you guys because we just got that 11 a.m. advisory.
And really, it's technically strengthening. Winds are up now to 150 miles per hour compared to 145. I think the biggest thing is they're no longer saying it's going to be a Cat 5, but at that point, it's really only a matter of 7 miles per hour.
At the end of the day, what they're observing the satellite imagery, and it's looking a little more ragged, and looking even at kind of the upper dynamics. Drier air is coming in on the north side. The feature that's expected to pick it up and throw it into Florida is doing exactly what it's supposed to, but at the same time is stopping, we think, some significant strengthening today.
Yeah, and the big takeaway, still expect to make landfall as a major hurricane. So keep those preps. Continue to do them because this is still going to be a very impactful storm to Florida. So we were just talking about how raggedy this system looks. It doesn't have a perfect defined eye, and in fact, convection on the northwestern side of that eye, while not looking impressive at the moment. But here's the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Winds of 150 miles per hour. The movement has actually slowed down just a smidge. It's still to the east-northeast at east-northeast rather, that movement, but it's at 9 miles per hour instead of 12 miles per hour from that 8 o'clock advisory. And here's that track from the National Hurricane Center. It's going to begin to lift towards the northeast. It's still going to maintain its Cat 4 strength with winds of 150 miles per hour. Again, not expected anymore to strengthen to a Cat 5. And then look at what happens as we go throughout the day Wednesday. It begins to weaken upon landfall, and landfall is going to be early Thursday morning, moving through central Florida Thursday morning at 8 a.m. with winds as high as 100 miles per hour, Cat 2 status, and then off of our coastline by Thursday evening as a Cat 1 hurricane. So keep in mind, we're still going to be dealing with very high impacts. And just a reminder from that 8 a.m. advisory, we have hurricane warnings posted for all of central Florida. We also have now storm surge warnings in effect for our coastline from Flagler County down to Volusia County, and that's going to be after the storm departs. For right now, the coastline of Brevard County from the Cape south only in a storm surge watch. What you need to know today: finish your preparations still, and then as we look towards Wednesday, we'll start to get some of those rain bands gradually working into central Florida, with the worst of the weather arriving late Wednesday into Thursday. For more on that, let's get over to Eric.
Yeah, so basically looking at all the model data, we think the best idea is by about lunchtime tomorrow, be where you're going to ride the storm out. The worst of the weather doesn't come until the overnight. Really, dinner time on, it gets rough, but the winds are going to start to ramp up through the afternoon, and it's just best practice. So lunchtime, just kind of factor that in, okay? In addition to all of the winds and the severe threat, I also want to point out the idea that on the scale of kind of 1 to 4, we're on a level 4 risk for flooding, meaning that in addition to everything else, torrential tropical downpours to the point where our saturated soil may not be able to handle it all. Thus, flash flooding is a concern. Just kind of all these little pieces of this puzzle we have to decode. So looking ahead to the forecast in Polk County, we're anticipating gusts running 90, 100, 110 miles per hour. In Sumter County, nearly the same thing. Rainfall could see upwards of 10 plus inches of rain in spots, particularly Rutland, the Villages, up toward Wildwood. Now inland a bit, let's head to Seminole County, 55, 65 mile per hour sustained winds, and of course the gusts running 80, 85, 90 miles per hour. And then into Brevard County, we're looking more along the lines of again, 75, 80 mile per hour winds with particularly higher gusts. At this hour, though, outside now, just before lunchtime, there's some blue sky. It is actually a nice day. Temperatures are climbing, low to mid 80s across town. And our first warning, live Doppler radar, relatively quiet, though. Tell that to our friends up here, Palm Coast Marineland. A heavy downpour is about to come ashore or already starting around Palm Coast. So that's where we're at now. But what about the rest of the day today? And of course, looking ahead to the timing of the worst weather tomorrow. We've got you covered with Central Florida's certified most accurate forecast in an absolutely no hype, just letting you know what's happening kind of situation in just a couple of minutes.
I love when he says no hype. It really helps my anxiety.
I think it helps everyone, though, right? Because this is a high-stress time. We appreciate that, Eric. We certainly do.
Yeah, it is. And we can only imagine the stress on the West Coast, right? As Hurricane Milton moves closer to Florida, one of the top concerns over there is debris left over from Hurricane Helene that impacted Tampa Bay just 12 days ago.
Yeah, this is really a double whammy. Governor Ron DeSantis says that crews are working around the clock to get that debris removed before Milton hits the Sunshine State. WESH's Megan Mackey is live now from St. Petersburg, where huge piles of debris are still there, piling up as people there are finishing their preps, Megan.
Yeah, that's right. I'm actually near the St. Pete Bridge that heads over to the beach. This is near the Quarry Causeway, if you're familiar with this area. And right behind me, you can see that boat that was washed ashore from Hurricane Helene. And now that's from that strong storm surge. And people here are still doing their cleanups. I want to give you a look at this video. St. Pete does have a drop-off location for all that debris and hazardous material. And people have been working all throughout today to get as much debris cleared as possible before Hurricane Milton makes landfall. People I talked to in this area said in some streets water was up to their chests and many items and yardways had to be cleaned up. It's been less than 2 weeks since Helene impacted Tampa Bay, but Governor Ron DeSantis says getting all that debris removed is one of his top priorities before Hurricane Milton makes landfall. With those strong winds and even higher storm surge projected, neighbors and crews are wasting no time.
If you haven't been here during a real hurricane with a strong storm surge, it's hard to even comprehend what it's like. But you know, it's real. So don't think it's not.
About 500,000 residents in Pinellas County are under mandatory evacuation orders right now, and law enforcement are urging people who live here to listen to those warnings. Some people told me they're opting to stay, while others have already left. And even so far this morning, we see a lot of people heading from that bridge towards the Tampa Bay area, evacuating, just getting those last-minute preps done. We've seen people drilling some hard metal sheets over their windows because they're so concerned about the winds. Of course, we will be here all throughout the storm, and we'll keep you updated right here on WESH 2. Reporting live in St. Petersburg, Megan Mackey, WESH.
All right, Megan, and we want to put a real emphasis today on mobile homes. They'll be especially vulnerable during the storm.
And that's why Orange County Fire Rescue is going door to door right now, giving out critical safety information. WESH's Bob Payson is live in Orlando this morning. Bob, people living in and also passing through that area are getting ready.
Yeah, it's a busy morning for all of them. Actually, we moved right down the road to this Wawa on East Colonial to show you what it looks like for people getting gas right now. You can see it's very busy out here, but they do still have gas and people are still able to fill up. You just got to be willing to wait a couple of minutes, perhaps, because there are a lot of people who are trying to do the same thing right now. And I do also want to show you what we saw with firefighters earlier this morning out here in East Orange County. They were out handing out flyers for people to get ready. And also other counties getting ready as well. Lake County Emergency Operations Center having a news update right now, and let's go to that live.
Lake County School Board Superintendent Diane Cornegie, Animal Service Director Whitney Boylston, and Emergency Management Director Megan Milanese. As we know, Hurricane Milton is a substantial threat to our area. Milton brings a threat of dangerous winds and excessive rain. We expect to start seeing conditions worse tomorrow evening. The river and flood warnings have already been in place for Geneva up to Astor. If you're in an area that historically floods or experiences dangerous conditions during the storm, I'm asking you now, please utilize our shelters. Ask friends and family. Take care of yourself, the elderly, and your pets. Safety of our friends and neighbors is paramount. This is not a storm to take lightly, whether you've been through a dozen storms or this is your first. My best advice to you is to prepare now. Set aside supplies for yourself, your elderly family members, and your pets. At this time, I would like to introduce Congressman Webster to speak to our community. Congressman Webster.
Thank you so much. Good to be here today. I just came to encourage everybody. Lake County is always prepared. They're prepared again this time, and it's just fantastic thing to see, that we're going to have a great opportunity to seek shelter if you need it. But what I would say, do what the authorities say do, no matter what it is. If they say leave, then leave. If they say stay, then stay. No matter what it is, get ready. Well, I live in Lake County. I think we've got commissioners and a sheriff and fire chiefs and others, that first responders that do us a good, great service for being here, being ready, being open, and responding to every detail there is to do so that we'll all be safe and secure. And a day from now, we're going to be all happy. Glad to see it leave, and glad to see it say goodbye to a storm that we don't want to see come, but it is, and because of that, we're ready to be to respond to any problems there are. Thanks for letting me come today. Good to see you. May God bless this county, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, sir. As an update, the Emergency Operations Center is currently at a level 1 full activation, and we'll begin conducting 24-hour operations today. At this time, we are expecting sustained, strong tropical storm force winds to impact our community with possible hurricane strength gusts. We are currently under a hurricane warning, and we will be for at least the next 36 hours. We do have 15 shelter locations that will be opening in Lake County today at noon, including 9 pet-friendly shelters and 5 special needs shelters. I am going to read those shelter names now. Our general population shelters include East Ridge High School, East Ridge Middle School, Eustis High School, Leesburg High School, Mount Dora High School, Tavares High School. Our shelters that are general population as well as pet friendly include Mascot Elementary, Brown Lake Elementary, Spring Creek Elementary, and Treadway Elementary. Our pet friendly and special needs shelters that also include general population will be Leesburg Elementary, Lost Lake Elementary, Astatula Elementary, Umatilla Elementary, and the Villages Elementary. As stated before, the shelters will begin accepting residents today at 12 p.m. Residents who need help getting to a shelter should call the Citizens Information Line to schedule their travel. Lake Express, Lake County's fixed route bus system, will be providing free rides on Wednesday as well to travelers who state they need to be taken to a shelter. Free rides will continue to be given until conditions become unsafe. Riders must tell the driver they are going to a shelter to get the free ride. Sandbag operations will also continue at all locations through weather conditions declining. And all updates, including shelter and sandbag locations, are available on the Lake County website at www.lakecountyfl.gov/storm. Additionally, starting today, the Citizens Information Line will be open for calls from residents 24 hours a day, and that number is 352-253-9999. Again, it's 352-253-9999, and that's where you can speak to someone who can give you answers about the storm and what to expect. As we are entering the impact phase of our response, residents should be finalizing their plans for this storm. To help residents dispose of yard debris and household garbage before the storm, Lake County is opening 4 solid waste facilities outside of regular hours today only. The sites with extended hours are the Astor facility, Lady Lake facility, Central facility, and the Log House facility. Residents who are looking to drop off yard debris can do so for free until facilities close due to the storm. As always, Lake County residents can also bring household waste to our facilities at no cost. There's a list of facilities and their service hours on our website. We know the storm has many people worried. I just can't stress enough how important it is that we prepare with purpose instead of panicking at this point. It's important to stay calm, take a breath, enact your plan, and know that we have resources at the ready to assist if needed. At this time, I will now turn it over to Superintendent Diane Cornegie.
Good morning. The staff of Lake County Schools has been working closely with Lake County Emergency Management to monitor the storm and prepare for its arrival. While teaching and learning is certainly the core of our work, safety is our top priority. Our decisions about school operations have been made with student and employee safety in mind, as well as that of our community. Schools are closed today, Tuesday. We are one of several districts designated to host evacuees in our schools that will be used as shelters. So we close schools today to prepare for those guests who will be arriving, as Megan said, around noon. Schools are also closed Wednesday and Thursday. For all 3 days, after-school activities have been canceled and ELC is closed. Friday was already a pre-scheduled student day off and a planning day for our teachers. Students will not report to school on Friday, and teachers will now have a virtual planning day if they choose to do so. We will use Friday as a time to assess any damages and begin restoration efforts if needed. ELC will also be closed on Friday. We have several football games scheduled for Friday, but whether or not we will continue as scheduled depends on the state of the fields after the storm. So stay tuned. Schools will be announcing that information on Friday. I want to encourage all of our families, our students, and our employees to take necessary precautions and stay safe. And we look forward to welcoming everybody back, hopefully on Monday when we plan to resume full operations. Thank you.
Well, good morning. Your Lake County Sheriff's Office stands ready to assist our citizens through this storm. When it comes to our citizens here in Lake County, they're second to none, supporting public safety and cooperating with us. That's what we need through this period of time. We're all hands on deck, ready to go. We have our disaster response teams that are strategically staged across our county. We are asking our residents by midday tomorrow to please have everything that you need done to be off of the roadways. Post-storm, same thing. If you can stay off the roadways, please allow us time to get out there. We have inmate work crews that are going to be assisting with Public Works to cut and toss any debris. Obviously, we start with the major roadways and work our way in, but it will help us tremendously if the roadways are clear until we have a chance to do that. Obviously, we're expecting power outages. If you are on the roadway, and there again, please stay off if you can. But if you come to an intersection where the traffic lights are inoperable, please treat that intersection as a four-way stop, be patient, and then proceed through the intersection as safely as you can. Keep monitoring our social media, as we will continue to work closely with our local emergency management officials to share information to help keep you informed. Once again, thank you to our citizens for cooperating with public safety. Together we will get through this storm, and it's our goal to keep everybody as safe as possible. Thank you. And I think we have Whitney from Lake County Animal Shelter and Nugget.
Nugget and I are here today to encourage you to include your pets in your emergency preparedness plan. So the same way you would prepare for any member of your family, please don't forget about your pets. And remember, if it's not safe for you, it's not safe for them. So please take advantage of one of our 9 pet-friendly sheltering locations if you need a safe place to weather the storm with your 4-legged friend. Also, please pack everything that your pet needs for their stay in the shelter should you decide that that's where you need to go. That would include a crate, food, toys, a comfort item, as well as identification, any medication that your pet needs. And it's super important after the storm as well to be very aware of the surroundings. Please check your fence line and make sure it's secure. Walk your pet actually on their leash after the storm. There could be all kinds of hazards out there. Your pet needs to be identified hopefully with a permanent microchip. If that's not the case, your ID tag is going to be super handy. If it's too late for you to prepare like that, you can always grab a permanent marker and write your phone number on your pet's collar, so in the unfortunate event that you get separated during the storm, that you can be reunited as soon as possible.
All right, and at this time we're going to go ahead and start the question and answer segment. What I need you to do again is raise your hand, tell me the channel, and then make sure you say who you are directing the question to. LeVar Cooper is in the back. He will be passing around microphones. We'll go ahead and go with 6 first.
Hi, good morning. Emily McLeod, Channel 6. My question is for Megan. Does the county plan on enacting any curfews?
So any curfew announcements will be coming later, and we'll make sure that folks have that information.
Another question for Megan, Emily McLeod, Channel 6. You mentioned debris. How much debris is left in Lake County? Is it something to be concerned about? Where are the areas that we're seeing most of that yard debris?
So our crews have been working to pick up debris as quickly as they can. However, as folks continue to leave debris out, we can't guarantee that everything's going to be picked up. However, we do have crews working on it as quickly as they can.
Additional question? Maybe one more for Megan. Oops, sorry. One more question for Megan. Will the county put in any voluntary evacuations in place?
So those decisions are expected to be made very shortly, and announcements will be made as well.
My question is for Megan too. My name is Spencer Tracy from WESH 2. I guess what is your guys' biggest concern? Is it the flooding, power outages, winds? What are you guys mainly focusing on at this moment?
So with this storm, we expect a variety of hazards. We're expecting to see strong tropical storm force winds with hurricane gusts. We are also expecting to see heavy rainfall, and we are also monitoring the St. Johns River at Astor to make sure that we understand what the flooding impacts are going to be for that community. At this time, we are seeing some forecasts that could push the river into major flood stage, which means we are looking at plans to assist that community post-impact.
I guess follow-up question. That could also lead to rescues as well. I guess that could be for the sheriff as well. Is that a concern, having enough crews to do rescues? Say that St. Johns River did flood, God forbid.
So part of what our planning process is to make sure that we have plans and crews in place to conduct those rescues if needed. That's part of the disaster response team planning, as well as the additional public safety resources that we stage in those areas.
I know she covered it well.
Any other questions? At this time, we're going to go ahead and conclude the press conference. Speakers, you can go ahead and walk back out into the hallway. Thank you very much. If you
Okay, listening there to Lake County officials, a few updates there out of Lake County. They will have 5 special needs shelters, 9 pet-friendly shelters. Also, the superintendent just reiterating that schools closed today, Wednesday and Thursday, and just, getting ready for the storm. They even brought a pet. They brought little Nugget out there with them, guys. Yes, just to reiterate, don't forget about your pets, right?
Really driving that point home. And every time we have one of these news conferences, we know it's a lot of information. So we want to let you know we're putting it all on WESH.com, county by county, so it's easy for you to find information where you live.
All right, let's talk about the storm, guys. So we're looking at more of a landfall into Wednesday night, overnight, early Thursday morning, and it's still just a very powerful hurricane.
Yeah, with that 11 o'clock advisory, there hasn't been much change in the strength. Winds of 150 miles per hour. It's up by about 5 miles per hour, but still not much has changed. It is slowing down just a bit. The previous motion was at 12 miles per hour. Now it is at 9 miles per hour. Here's that track from the National Hurricane Center. No longer expected to become a Cat 5 hurricane, but it's still going to be a very powerful hurricane. Throughout the day today, holding its strength with winds of 150 miles per hour, gradually strengthening tomorrow morning to winds of 145 miles per hour, and then making landfall early Thursday morning as a Cat 3 hurricane, a major hurricane with big impacts, and then moving across central Florida Thursday morning with winds of 100 miles per hour, and then moving off of our coastline still as a hurricane by Thursday afternoon and Thursday evening. Now, obviously, with a new track, we want to compare the last 5 tracks. Overall, it's looking like making landfall along the Sun Coast, cutting across central Florida. But when we compare the last 2 tracks, they're really consistent and they're almost identical, which is very, very interesting to see. So there's nearly no shift in these tracks. Obviously, the impacts are going to be the same. One thing to note is that it's starting to favor moving over Osceola County and Polk County, which would suggest then higher impacts, especially rainfall for Orlando, the I-4 corridor, and our northern locations. Now, as Milton gets closer, we'll get some outer rain bands moving in late tomorrow morning into the early afternoon, but really the worst worst of the weather is going to arrive Wednesday evening as more of those outer rain bands move on in ahead of landfall. And then by Thursday morning, making landfall, cutting across central Florida, and then moving off the coastline by Thursday afternoon. But with those rain bands that we're watching, the tornado threat is going to be on the elevated side. We could even see several tornadoes tomorrow with the arrival of those rain bands. Now, this is the rainfall accumulation prediction by the Weather Prediction Center. Just giving you a general idea, 7 to 10 inches of precipitation. But I want to show you our two major models because this is something of very interest and significance that really stuck out to me. European GFS showing heavy rainfall along Orlando and Northwest. But it's a GFS in particular showing a ribbon of rain between 12 to 18 inches of rainfall. Now, this is not necessarily saying that this is exactly going to happen, but it shows you flooding is going to be expected across central Florida. That's for most of the area. So you need to take your preparations today, especially if you live in low-lying areas or even if you live in some flooding-prone areas. For more on our overall impacts, let's head over to meteorologist Eric Burris.
All right, so let's just kind of look at kind of the threats and break them down in terms of timeline. All right, for the East Coast communities, we're looking at the surge building as the storm is moving our direction. The winds are going to be that gradual onset. So through today, we are fine. Tomorrow morning, we'll wake up breezy, but late morning, we'll start to see some of those squalls bringing the gustier winds. And then late in the day, we'll get into those hurricane conditions. In terms of tornadoes, it's going to be kind of late morning through the day. And then, of course, flooding, as Kellyanne had alluded to, really kind of a Wednesday afternoon, evening, and overnight time frame. So let's use our Futurecast model and zero in on the wind impacts. And we're going to take you hour by hour. We're starting at lunchtime tomorrow. This is the time we said probably best to stay inside. This is when you want to be where you'll be to ride the storm out, okay? Through about 5:30, getting breezier as some feeder bands move through. 10 p.m., starting to see those gusts moving into our southwestern areas, right? But it's not until about 2, 3, 4 o'clock that we really start to see the core of the destructive winds moving in. 4 a.m., the reds and almost like brown-white shades, that's the damaging winds moving in. 6 a.m., gusting to tropical storm force, 50, 60 miles per hour. But notice we're getting into hurricane conditions here in Winter Haven. 7, 8 o'clock, the actual center of circulation riding right up I-4, but giving hurricane conditions from the tourist district back over to Lake County and even Sumter County. And then by about 4, 5, 6 o'clock, we're watching this moving off the shoreline and to the east. And the newest run of Futurecast has slowed things down yet again. So we're shifting things around just a little bit. But the overall idea is for today, normal. Tomorrow morning, fairly quiet. Through tomorrow afternoon, those winds pick up, and then tomorrow overnight through Thursday morning, the hurricane moves right through the heart of central Florida. Outside right now, we're in the tourist district on our Tower Cam network. Some blue sky, but it's a nice and warm afternoon with temperatures climbing into the 80s. Our 7-day forecast revealing that today is just kind of on again, off again clouds, showers, downpours, little sunshine here or there. Tomorrow, late day through early Thursday, Hurricane Milton moves through central Florida, and this has the potential to be a significant impact for us, the likes which we haven't seen since Irma or even Charlie 20 years ago in terms of wind speeds, right? So we have to be ready for a good hit from Mother Nature. Afterward, thankfully, things will get much better. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, cooler, somewhat drier air moves in, highs in the mid-80s. Morning lows, though, waking up for the first time in a while in the 60s.
Can't wait to get to the other side of this, right?
Right.
And those temperatures,
Yes.
That's nice. All right, we got to talk about sandbags. There are several sites open across all of our central Florida counties right now and throughout the day, so you have some time maybe when you get off work.
Yeah, let's go to the coast first. In Brevard County, sandbag sites are open in Titusville, Merritt Island, Melbourne, and also Palm Bay.
In Lake County, there are sites in Sorrento, Umatilla, Clermont, and Tavares. A full list of sandbag sites will be scrolling at the bottom of your screen, and you can also find more information on WESH.com. And remember, those lines have been very long, so prepare for that. Ahead in our next half hour, we look at how the Gulf Coast is preparing amid an already daunting cleanup from the last storm.
Plus, more preps across Central Florida as parts of our area are under evacuation orders. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Milton.
And especially concerned about that I-4 corridor, Tampa, Orlando, Daytona Beach, is seeing potentially some of the most severe impacts from multiple hazards.
And that's the National Hurricane Center there on the very real risk that Hurricane Milton poses not only to Florida's western coast, but also to us right here in Central Florida and along the Atlantic coast too.
Here is where things stand right now. The storm is just off the coast of Mexico, bringing rain and wind to the Yucatan Peninsula. We are expecting to start feeling the impacts of the hurricane within the next 48 hours.
Let's check in now with our team of First Warning meteorologists, Kellyanne Klass and Eric Burris. Guys, just take us through the very latest. The track of this, just the intensity of the storm really is something, and just so concerning for the folks in Tampa and then for us here in Central Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most notable thing is that the track overall for Central Florida and Tampa has really not shifted much, so it's pretty consistent. So obviously our impacts are going to stay the same in terms of intensity, not quite at Cat 5 status, but it's still a strong hurricane.
It's a strong hurricane. I've seen some chatter on social media. People are like, it looks like it's shifting. It looks like it's shifting. And it's just important to calm things. Trends are your friends. These models are going to windshield wiper back and forth. We're looking for consistency, and the Hurricane Center has absolutely had that. But one thing the Hurricane Center is looking for at the moment is a lack of consistency in the shape of the storm itself.
Yeah, it looks very interesting at the moment. You would think when you look at it, it does not look like an impressive Cat 4 hurricane. One thing of interest note here at the moment, the latest satellite presentation trying to carve out an eye within the past 30 minutes or so. So that would show that, yes, this is strengthening. But when we look at our visible satellite, it doesn't look that impressive at the moment. There is no actual clearing in that center, but you could see that clear rotation and the very quick development of the thunderstorms in the eye and the eye wall. Now, the National Hurricane Center has us staying at Cat 4 hurricane throughout the day today and really maintaining its strength of winds of 150 miles per hour. But as we go into Wednesday morning, it gradually begins to weaken, where this Thursday morning, it will make landfall as a major hurricane. So whether it's a 4 or a 3 at landfall, we're still looking at a major hurricane landfalling along the sun coast of Florida. Then through Central Florida, still maintaining its hurricane strength and then pushing off of our coastline by Thursday afternoon and Thursday evening still as a hurricane. So here's a look at the past 5 tracks from the National Hurricane Center. You have the red and the orange as the most recent, and then you have the yellows, greens, and blues as some of the later tracks. And there is a subtle shift to the south, but when we look at the last 2 tracks, there's nearly no shift in the track, which is very interesting of note. And if this actually does pan out, it moves over Polk and Osceola counties. We are looking at high rainfall accumulations for the metro. So now, today, the time to prepare. It's going to take some time, obviously, for this storm to get here, but today, please prepare, especially if you are in some low-lying areas. Flooding going to be one of the big concerns here in Central Florida. Of course, obviously, along with the wind gusts that we always know come with a hurricane.
Right. So let's talk about those winds because, you know, in terms of hurricane hits over the last couple of decades, Hurricane Charlie's the strongest wind push Central Florida has had, with winds of 105 miles an hour at the Orlando International Airport. And it feels like just yesterday. It's been 20 years, though. Hurricane Irma winds were in the 70-mile-per-hour range. Ian, 70-mile-per-hour range, and Nicole in the 60-mile-per-hour range. And when we look at the wind gust threats, these purple shades are actually winds of 110 miles per hour or greater. So you're talking about major hurricane winds going as far inland as southern Sumter, Lake, and into central Polk County. When you get into Orlando, you're expecting, based on kind of just interpolation, running wind gusts of 96 to 105 miles per hour. So you're in that Charlie range, okay? And then the further east you go, those winds would perhaps calm down, but you're still looking at gusts in the 70, 80, 90 mile per hour range. So when does the worst weather move in? We've discussed this for the last couple of days. We think about noon tomorrow is the best time to be in. Doors shut, just kind of settled in, okay? Because afterward, things are going to start to get squally. But we think the worst of the weather really starts coming into the Tampa Bay area around 8 p.m. and, of course, landfall just thereafter. But for Orlando, Leesburg, Tavares, Claremont, Mascot, say Winter Garden, Kissimmee, the tourist district, we're looking at 11 p.m. Wednesday. That's when that worst of the weather starts to move in. And then in green, the I-95 corridor, Flagler, Volusia, and Brevard County, more more like 2 a.m., okay? So county by county, then Lake County, gusts of 85 or greater, just depending on how north or south you live. For Orange County, torrential downpours 5 to 8 inches with certainly hurricane force wind gusts. And in Volusia County, anticipating rains of 6 to 10 inches of rain and even watching for beach erosion and storm surge. Kellyanne and I will have much more on the entirety of impacts from Milton in Central Florida in just a couple of minutes.
All right, hundreds of tourists and residents have been evacuated from Mexico's Holbox Island. This is just ahead of Hurricane Milton. Local authorities and security personnel there facilitated these evacuations. In Cancun, fishermen secured their boats in anticipation of the hurricane. Supermarkets there boarded up windows and shoppers cleared out shelves to stock up on personal supplies. And here at home, hundreds of people in Osceola County have been waiting for hours to get into one of those sandbag sites.
Yeah, those lines are long right now in many locations. There are 2 open right now, but the biggest one is in Osceola Heritage Park. And that's where WESH News' Christina Watkins is live. And Christina, the county has given out thousands of sandbags.
They have. County leaders just said they've given out more than 300,000 sandbags since Saturday. And this morning, I can tell you guys, it has been nonstop here at Osceola Heritage Park. The line here started around 4 o'clock this morning. That is when we met the very first homeowner waiting to get those bags. The gates opened a little after 7 o'clock, and it has just been going and going. Home and business owners flow through these lines here. They get to those tents, they grab 25 sandbags, and then they make their way over to one of these different sand piles scattered all throughout the park, as you can see right over here. Kids are out of school, so they're here helping their parents, their guardians, their grandparents. The sheriff's office is also here helping those who may need a little bit of assistance. But we are seeing piles of sand coming all throughout this park. I've never seen anything like this before in all of my years of covering hurricanes. I got to admit, it sort of looks like a parking lot for a festival. That is how crowded it is right now. Osceola County leaders gave an update within the last hour about their preparations as they encourage all of you at home to get ready as well. Kissimmee City Manager says they've never had as many personnel prepped for a storm like they do right now. More than 200 people from different departments are ready to respond in the aftermath of Milton. Take a listen.
This includes over 70 fire personnel and 17 apparatus, 120 police personnel, and 4 teams ready to remove debris from roadways that will be strategically placed throughout various parts of the city. So no matter where you live, you will have a team within close proximity to respond immediately following the worst of the storm's impacts.
Yeah, and that is certainly reassuring news for the many people who live here in Osceola County. There are 2 sandbag sites open. As you heard Meredith and Nancy mention, this is the biggest one across the county. People from all over are driving 30 minutes and then waiting sometimes 90 minutes just to get into the park. They will keep this site open as long as sand is available. Good news though, I just saw 2 more dump trucks with more sand, so they are keeping it coming as long as they can. That's the latest here in Kissimmee. Christina Watkins. Guys, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Christina, thanks. And Milton, as we know, is expected to make landfall along the west coast. But we are talking about our east coast because folks there will see some major impacts.
Yeah, WESH News' Pamela Combe joins us live now from Flagler Beach, where people there are concerned about the risk of storm surge. Pamela.
There's the possibility of several feet of storm surge on the coast and the intercoastal, which of course could lead to flooding in the roads and people's homes. And just to kind of put the storm surge into perspective a little bit, I want you guys to take a look at the shore right where the seaweed is. That is where the water reaches during high tide. So when you're adding an additional 3 to 5 feet of storm surge, plus those powerful waves that are coming in, I mean, it has the potential to reach these dunes, which of course is very concerning here in Flagler Beach. A massive beach renourishment project was recently completed so that when we experience storm surge like what we're expecting in the coming days, it wouldn't have such a devastating impact on the roads and nearby homes and businesses. Of course, Milton will put this project to the test, and erosion, unfortunately, is inevitable.
It's going to be a sight. I hope
that the storm surge is less than 5 feet, and it'll be because these people went through a lot of money, $27 million, I guess, to reclaim this beach, and it only takes a few hours, doesn't it, for it to dissipate.
We will be keeping an eye on these conditions, and the county did say evacuation orders could be coming as soon as tomorrow. Those living in mobile homes and coastal communities might have to prepare to move. And the county does plan to open Rimfire Elementary School as their primary pet-friendly shelter. And Flagler County does plan to hold a press conference at 4 p.m. just to give us the latest and any updates. So, of course, we will update you right here on WESH. Reporting in Flagler Beach, Pamela Combe, WESH 2 News.
All right, Pamela, and with the threat of back-to-back hurricanes looming on the West Coast, crews really are scrambling to haul away all of that debris that we've seen from Hurricane Helene before Milton makes landfall.
Imagine the stress.
Yes.
NBC's Jesse Kirsch has the very latest now from Sarasota.
Less than 2 weeks ago, you could see Hurricane Helene brought the water level on this home to around my waist height. But with this new storm, Milton, we're potentially going to see twice as high of a storm surge. And that is something that is concerning on top of all of this debris from the last storm that is still out in communities all over Florida's Gulf Coast. And what we're looking at is the possibility that this debris could be picked up in the air by those powerful wind gusts. It also could become essentially a battering ram in storm surge, which again could be twice as high in areas like where I am in Sarasota. So all of that debris pickup that we're seeing is going on 24/7, the governor says. The state saying that hundreds of truckloads have already been picked up, and this is something that is continuing. But even with the pickups, you can see there's still a good amount of debris out in these communities. Another challenge on top of everything that we typically see ahead of a major hurricane, which is going on right now. Calls for evacuations, people stocking up on items like food, sandbag distribution, people boarding up homes and businesses, all of this as this area is bracing for another major hurricane, the second in less than 2 weeks. Back to you.
After the break, we are learning about the supermarket rush happening now as people prepare.
And we will get another check with our meteorologist tracking Hurricane Milton.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Milton.
All right, welcome back to our continuing coverage. We are staying on the air with you throughout the day, the evening, as long as it takes. We're all going to get through this together, and we're going to begin now, of course, with you guys and the very latest on the storm.
Yeah, so 11 o'clock advisory out. It has picked up winds of about 5 miles per hour, but it's still a Cat 4 hurricane, and the track has really been the same.
Yeah, the last like 5 forecasts from the Hurricane Center, so you're talking more than a day. They have nudged the forecast plus or minus 4 or 5 miles.
So it's not.
It's really locking in somewhere around the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, honestly, over near St. Pete, Tampa.
And, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so now's really the time as folks are getting out of work. Maybe they have the half day. I know there's early release for some of the kiddos, but get everything in order.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, now is obviously, like you said, the time to prepare. I also think that today's really interesting because between the 2 o'clock advisory and the 5 o'clock advisory, there have been a lot of changes in some of the impacts. Mostly what we're talking about is actually the rainfall, not necessarily the wind, but it is the rainfall. And that could set up a significant flooding event for Central Florida and parts of Central Florida. Okay, let's at least get to Milton right now. Winds of 150 miles per hour. Movement is slowing a bit at about 9 miles per hour. Previously, it was at 12 miles per hour. Looks like it is still trying to carve out that eye, not seeing it completely carved out from our visible satellite yet, but it is going to be working with some warmer waters, ocean temperatures around 83 to 86 degrees. But at the same time, we have this dry air moving to our northern spots of Milton, and that's going to allow for this to slowly break apart. That's why when we look at the track and it weakening slightly before landfall, that's the reason why. It's still, though, going to make landfall as a major hurricane. Here's the latest track from the National Hurricane Center. Later on this afternoon and evening, maintaining its strength with Cat 4 winds of 150 miles per hour. And then by Wednesday evening before landfall, weakening to a Cat 3 hurricane, making landfall as a major hurricane, and then working across Central Florida as a Cat 2 hurricane Thursday late morning going into the afternoon. And then by the late afternoon, early evening, it's off of our coast as a hurricane. Now, we also need to watch our own coastline for that potential of storm surge. It's not going to be when the storm arrives or right before the storm arrives. It's going to be afterwards when it moves off of our coastline, and we'll have those strong onshore winds from Flagler County down to Brevard County. We have storm surge warnings in effect, and that's going to be from the Cape all the way up to St. Johns County, even Duval County out in North Florida. Peak storm surge could reach as high as about 5 feet, and so not as high as what Tampa and the Sun Coast is going to see, but it will be a good amount of storm surge. Of course, that's just one piece to the puzzle. The storm surge, the rough surf is going to be another factor. Even after the storm pulls away Friday, look at that, seas 11 to 18 feet, breaking waves of 8 to 10 feet, and our rip current risk is still going to remain on the high side. So we don't want to forget about our coastal locations because that's going to be after the storm rolls through. But of course, we want to know, when does the storm roll through? Let's get over to meteorologist Eric Burris.
Yeah, so let's take it hour by hour, and we're just starting Futurecast here today at lunchtime, and it's a little bit of a breeze coming in off the ocean. Futurecast is showing a few showers, and guess what? It's exactly where we're seeing rains right now. So perfect. Model doing a great job. Through the day, a few spotty showers, nothing but a nice breeze and comfortably warm temperatures. Overnight tonight, we'll start to see more rains slide into the area. This is 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Noticing more rains kind of working to lunchtime. And I'm pausing it at lunchtime because this is about the time we should really lock in for the storm. After this, we start to see some more intense feeder bands with squally, real pushes of wind. Okay, this is 5 p.m. for example, already in that 20, 30, 40 mile per hour wind range with some higher gusts from time to time. But it's late, and the model trend has been slower and slower. This is 9 p.m., gusty winds, scattered downpours, but that's not the storm itself. It's still those outer bands. But the closer you get, the stronger these outer bands are, right? So this is 11 p.m., just tropical downpours around. By about 1 a.m., winds are starting to pick up more, 50 mile per hour winds. Then you get the core of the storm making landfall around midnight or just thereafter. You're getting closer to 60 mile per hour winds. And by about 5, 6, 7 o'clock, look at our Futurecast model showing the core of that storm along or just north of I-4. 7 a.m., winds at 85 in Winter Haven, 70 or thereabouts here in Kissimmee, and in that same range around that center of circulation. By about 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, the center of circulation, which will no longer have an eye, fills in, and it's just a rough morning, all right? This is 9 o'clock, winds 60, 70, 80 miles an hour with higher gusts. Works over to the shoreline by about 11 a.m. We're slowing it down here, right? 50, 60 mile per hour winds. Look on the backside, still in 70 mile per hour range at 11 a.m. now on Thursday. And then by about 1, 2, 3 o'clock, center of circulation is off the shoreline, but the winds are feeding back along the shoreline here. So Volusia, Flagler, St. Johns, and Duval counties have to deal with a bit of a storm surge worry looking at Thursday afternoon. Then eventually it works away. Our winds start to quiet down and we'll get back to normal. In terms of tornado threats, we've elevated to several tornadoes around central Florida. And then there's the risk of just these torrential downpours piling and piling and piling and leading to some flash flooding. So there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, but essentially for the rest of today, tonight, and even tomorrow morning, we're fine, clouds and showers, but it's going to be late Wednesday into Thursday that we have to deal with hurricane conditions in central Florida. And then happy to report on the backside of all of this, we get back to a typical October pattern, highs in the 80s and morning lows in the 60s. That will be a nice change.
All right, Erin, that sounds nice, doesn't it? To
It
get
sure
to the
does.
other side of this. All right, let's go to Lake County now, where officials are working to get some critical information to as many people as possible.
It's all in an effort now to help everyone stay safe before, during, and after the hurricane. WESH News' Spencer Tracy is live in Tavares. And Spencer, we know the press conference wrapped up just a little while ago to inform people of what's happening in that location.
Yeah, I mean, Lake County is really hunkering down and make sure that residents are safe and prepared. We had all different types of officials talk, and one of them from the Sheriff's Office is Lieutenant John Harold. How are we feeling going into this storm?
We feel good. We are very prepared. We stand ready to respond if needed, and we've been putting out a lot of information to our citizens so that they can prepare ahead of time, and I think that we're going to get through this.
You know, the Sheriff's Office is always, hands on deck. Talk to me a little about the operations once the storm actually hits.
So once it hits, we have disaster response teams that are strategically placed throughout the county, and they are going to be ready to respond and render aid. Obviously, a lot is going to be factored into that equation: wind speeds, the type of the call for service, the type of vehicle that a particular deputy happens to be in. So all of that is going to really factor into the equations to help determine what we respond to. Obviously, if there is a life-threatening situation, we have armored personnel carrier that we will be able to deploy if needed. We hope that that's not the case. But right now, we're just encouraging everyone to be where they need to be early on, ahead of time, and just stay off the roads and just hunker down and stay safe. And that'll be the biggest help for us.
I think another big takeaway during the press conference was having everyone being off the roads tomorrow by noon. I think that's really important as well.
Absolutely. I mean, there's always down limbs, down trees, down power lines, other road hazards. So it just doesn't make any sense to be out there putting yourself or your family in jeopardy and in harm's way. So we just want everyone to stay safe, and we're going to do what we can to help them stay safe and hope for the best as we move through this.
For sure. And no evacuations at the moment, but you guys are obviously continuing to monitor.
That's correct. We are monitoring it. There are no mandatory evacuations, but obviously we've been putting this information out through our social media platforms, and we're trying to help the citizens make a well-informed decision, especially those who live in mobile homes or older structures. They need to take this information. They need to be familiar with the shelter locations and just use the information we've been putting out regularly to make a well-informed decision, because we want them to stay safe. If they have to go to a shelter, it's only for a temporary period. No one likes the idea of going to a shelter, but they need to do what they need to do to stay safe and protect themselves and their families.
You guys got a lot of work to do, so I'll let you get back to that. But yeah, there'll be 15 shelters that are going to be opening here at noon. We have a list of sandbag locations. All of that is going to be on WESH.com. Of course, there's more updates. We'll bring them to you on air and online. I'm reporting here in Lake County. I'm Spencer Tracy, WESH 2 News.
And we are riding out the storm together with you. Our main goal here is to keep all of your family safe, your property safe, providing any information that you need during Hurricane Milton.
And hopefully help you ease a little of this anxiety that we're all feeling. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Milton.
Well, Florida is the most flood-prone state in the nation, and we've been dealing with an insurance crisis here in the state.
Absolutely, and combine that with Hurricane Helene less than 2 weeks ago, and Hurricane Milton could bring a lot of issues to Central Florida. So here's what you can do. First, use your smartphone and video all of your belongings so that you have a record of what everything looks like right now. Take photos of heirlooms, clothes, dishes, and jewelry, photos of cars and equipment like lawnmowers.
Record what you did to protect your home, for instance, putting on storm shutters, and then gather all those important documents, put them in a Ziploc bag to protect them from getting wet. So if you've lived here for a long time, you know these kind of rules that we kind of live by when it's hurricane season. But still, if you're new to the area, these are all good reminders.
I also want to add just real quick, all our home videos are on hard drives. And I asked my husband, put them in plastic and put them up high just in case. You don't want to lose some of these things that are irreplaceable. So.
Exactly. All right, we'll head this afternoon at noon. We look at the comparison between this hurricane and ones that we've had in the past.
And we continue to track the storm's path as it moves toward us here in Florida. What our meteorologists have to say about the storm's strength as people continue to evacuate from our west coast. We'll be right back.
You're watching continuing coverage of Milton from WESH 2.
This storm's going to be different. If you're in an evacuation zone, please get out. Don't gamble with you and your loved one's life. You're better off being inconvenienced and uncomfortable, yet alive.
Strong words from the sheriff of Hillsborough County urging people to follow evacuation orders ahead of Milton's arrival. Tampa's mayor also shared a similar message.
Yeah, this hurricane is in the Gulf of Mexico right now, already impacting the Yucatan Peninsula with heavy rain and gusty winds. We can expect to start to feel similar effects here in Central Florida within the next couple of days.
We have team coverage for you on how people from Central Florida to the Gulf Coast are preparing for this storm. Our crews are pretty much everywhere throughout our region.
We're We're going to check in with all of them in just a little bit, but first we do want to get the latest on the storm's path from First Warning Meteorologist Kellyanne Klass and Eric Burris. I got the push alert that it is expanded a little bit, but it's still a Category 4.
Yeah, so still a Cat 4 in terms of the actual winds at the eye wall. It has gone up just a smidge to 150 miles per hour instead of the 145, although hurricane hunters are flying through the storm and finding that the pressure is dropping slightly and the winds are picking up.
It's starting to look better on satellite presentation, so perhaps what we expect to be happening is eye wall replacement cycle is finishing. Now the eye will clear and we'll see those winds start to pick up. But the good news is we're still on par to work into some wind shear. So even if it does strengthen a little bit, it should be limited and start coming down in intensity on approach to Florida.
Good. And of course, with the 11 o'clock advisory, we also get a new track, and the track is still showing that it is going to weaken, but it's still going to make landfall as a major hurricane. Okay, so looking at that 11 o'clock advisory, winds of 150 miles per hour, moving to the east-northeast at 9 miles per hour. Pressure down to 929 millibars. That's going to be important because the hurricane hunters found a pressure of around 925. So when the pressure drops, indicating that it's strengthening. Right now, though, we don't have any special advisory from the National Hurricane Center or anything like that. Certainly, though, showing on our visible satellite a good center of circulation, and even on our other satellite presentations, you could start to see that eye wall forming. There's a lot of convection bubbling up as well, just showing that the storm, while it doesn't look impressive right now, it's still pretty healthy and it's still a very strong storm. The track from the National Hurricane Center shows it maintaining its strength throughout the day today, and then as it gets closer to the peninsula of Florida, it's going to weaken. By Wednesday evening, winds of 125 miles per hour, making it a Category 3 hurricane, making landfall along the Sun Coast early Thursday morning, moving through central Florida as a Category 2 hurricane, and then emerging off the coast as a Cat 1 hurricane. Now, I want to show you the past 5 tracks from the National Hurricane Center. There has been a very subtle shift south, but when we look at the last 2 tracks from the National Hurricane Center, there really has not been a shift. So it's pretty consistent that this is going to move across central Florida, and unfortunately, there are going to be higher impacts on the northern side of that eye wall, which would favor heavier rainfall for a good majority of central Florida. So the hurricane hunters did their pass, still finding very strong winds, potentially as high as Cat 5 status. We haven't, again, had an official word from the National Hurricane Center, but we will continue to monitor that. What you need to know, Wednesday afternoon, our squalls begin to increase, our winds pick up. We're going to start to watch that potential of severe weather. And then Wednesday night into early Thursday morning, this hurricane will move across the peninsula and then eventually emerge out into the Atlantic. So there's a lot to go over. At least one aspect we want to obviously always look at are the models and any trends in the models, Eric.
Yeah, and there's been some shifts, a little this direction, a little that direction, and it seems like there's kind of a main camp of models that are wanting to bring it in very near Tampa Bay, and some models that are still kind of showing more of a Northport, Venice kind of idea, Charlotte, Port Charlotte area. At the end of the day, though, there's going to be these ebbs and flows in the models. You just kind of have to watch and try to look for trends. And the overall trend has been kind of the Sun Coast from about Tampa down through Sarasota and Bradenton. In terms of intensity models, yesterday, a lot of the models were showing Cat 5 and kind of holding it up to landfall. Happy to say that that has trended down just a little bit. We're in Cat 4, strong Cat 4 range now, but most of the models are keeping it through Cat 4 range right up to landfall and then starting to bring the intensity down. So landfall, technically by the National Hurricane Center, strong Cat 3, borderline Cat 4. We'll see how this eventually plays on now. So that said, looking ahead for you and I, let's plan to be where we're going to be locked in by lunchtime tomorrow, because after that, the squally weather starts and of course gets into the worst weather overnight tomorrow night. Now there's a little bit of wiggle room there, but you know, just let's play on the safe side. Big concern growing this morning with model trends has been the threat for flooding. Earlier, it was one of those situations where it was likely to see some flooding, but at this point in time, models have trended wetter, so flooding, at least on a kind of isolated basis, is expected at this point because some areas tracking upwards of a foot of rain in this storm system. So we just need to really be cognizant. This is going to be a significant hurricane hit. And then, of course, there's the hurricane force winds to add to it. Already rough surf on the Atlantic side. Not much beach available here from our New Smyrna Beach Tower Camp. People are walking in there, but, you know, just kind of lets you know the lay of the land. Winds running about 10-15 miles an hour right now, and that wind is bringing in some rains. First warning live Doppler radar with torrential downpours over Palm Coast. This not associated with the hurricane, but looking ahead to tomorrow, we'll get into those tropical downpours. That is a whole other breed. We'll talk more about winds, rain, and of course even the threat for severe weather when meteorologist Kellyanne Klass and I join you again in just a couple of minutes.
All right, Eric, we'll see you soon. And as Hurricane Milton moves closer to our west coast, one of the top concerns is all the debris left over from Hurricane Helene that impacted Tampa Bay, incredibly, just 12 days ago.
Yeah, they're still recovering out in that region, and Governor DeSantis says crews are working around the clock to try to clear all of that out before Milton makes landfall. But it's still a doozy. WESH 2's Megan Mackey is live in St. Pete this afternoon. We've seen the big piles of debris. There's even a boat behind you there. A lot going on.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Sheldon, I mean, all of this is not going to be cleaned up by the time that Milton makes its landfall. But I can tell you all throughout the day today, I've seen crews everywhere working to clean up as much as possible from that previous storm. I want to give you a look at this video. This is a dump site here in St. Pete that we were at earlier, and you can see all the huge piles of that waste, as well as those trees and down branches that people have been working to get there all throughout today. And these are really a part of those last minute preps. With those strong winds and even higher storm surge projected ahead of this next storm, neighbors and crews are wasting no time Tuesday, I should say, cleaning up what's left behind from Helene.
If you haven't been here during a real hurricane with a strong storm surge, it's hard to even comprehend what it's like. But you know, it's real, so don't think it's not.
Yeah, that storm surge is definitely real, and that is what officials here are really emphasizing to residents, because you know you need to run from water. You can't hide from it. So people, especially in those low-lying areas, that is why they're under a mandatory evacuation order. About 500,000 residents in Pinellas County are under that evacuation order, and law enforcement is urging people here to listen to those warnings. I mean, really, after today is really the last time people will have the chance to leave. We still see people leaving this morning after making those last-minute preps and cleaning up, but come this evening, people should be heading out of here and getting to those final places before this storm moves in. Reporting live in St. Pete, Megan Mackey, WESH 2 News.
Again, just incredible to see that boat washed up behind her, and the fact that they're not going to be able to clear all that out before this next storm surge comes in. We know that mobile homes will also be especially vulnerable during the storm like this.
Yeah, a lot of attention right now on families who live in mobile homes. That's why Orange County Fire Rescue is going door to door, giving out critical safety information. WESH 2's Bob Hazen is live in Orlando now. Bob, people living in and passing through the area getting ready.
Yeah, that's right. You know, you talked about those mobile homes. That's a big concern out in this part of the county, near Bithlo. And I want to show you also what people are doing to prepare out here. This is a Wawa gas station on East Colonial. You can see cars kind of lined up right there to get gas at the pumps here. And there is gas still flowing, so people are able to fill up, even though you're, of course, going to have to wait a little bit if that is what you need to do before the storm does get here. But I also want to show you what firefighters have been doing out here this morning. Dozens of those Orange County firefighters came to the Fairways Country Club community, and they walked door to door handing out flyers to people who live in that neighborhood. They have information about getting to shelters and evacuating, plus how to stay safe before and after the storm. They're doing all of that because mobile homes are especially vulnerable during a hurricane.
You know, the recommendation is to make the best decision for you. Some people feel, well, I've been through storms before. Every storm is different. This one seems to be one that's going to be of historically high winds, historically high amount of rain. We've had rain producing hurricanes in the past and wind producing hurricanes in the past. This one's combined.
And Orange County Fire Rescue is planning to do that in mobile home parks all over the county today, not just here. They say there are 8,500 mobile homes and they want to hit them all. The county does have 14 emergency shelters open throughout Orange County for people who want to ride out the storm there. And again, this gas station in East Orange County, an example of what we've seen throughout this part of town. There is gas available at the stations. You're just going to have patience when you get up to them. Reporting live in East Orlando, Bob Hazen, WESH 2 News.
All right, good to hear that the firefighters are being proactive, going door to door in those mobile home communities. But we just saw in his live shot, he's at that Wawa there. I'm pretty sure it's the one on East Colonial there, right when you get off of the 408 by UCF. But there's long lines. State leaders are stressing that there is no shortage, but we saw the video there. I got stuck in a line at the 7-Eleven there in the Milk District last night trying to get gas.
Yeah. People are, they're worried, and it's a natural reaction. But again, those state leaders are urging there isn't a shortage. Governor DeSantis says the state has been dispatching fuel at gas stations run out now, but there is enough to go around.
Now, there is no fuel shortage. Fuel continues to arrive in the state of Florida by port and what we're doing to bring it in on the ground. But lines at gas stations have been long. Gas stations are running out quicker than they otherwise would. And so that is causing the state of Florida to help assist with the mission to be able to get fuel to the gas stations so that Floridians have access.
So there is a tool people can check to see which stations have gas before you head out. Just download Gas Buddy to find a place with gas near you.
All right, it's not raining today, and some people have a half day at work. Today is the day to start getting ready.
Yep, absolutely. Hurricane Milton is slowly making its way to Florida. Our WESH 2 News team is live, spread out across central Florida, even on our west coast, getting you prepared for what's to come in your neighborhood. We'll be right back.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Milton.
We're back here closing in on 12:15, and Hurricane Milton is expected to hit the west coast of Florida soon.
But the East Coast will also feel some of the storm's effects. It's so important that we keep that in mind with all this attention on the West Coast. WESH 2's tonight, Kebra joins us live now from a sandbag site in DeLand. And tonight, people there getting ready for the risk of floods. It's actually good to see they're taking this seriously.
Yeah, it's great to see how busy it is here. Just goes to show how people are preparing for this. So there are 3 stations here. Right behind me, you're looking at the self-serve station where people are using those shovels to get that sand into their bags and then carry it into their cars. And then just over to my right shoulder, if Melissa can show these lines over here, this is a drive-through. So one line is for people who are elderly folks, and then as well as people who have disabilities, those who may not be able to lift these sandbags by themselves. They got help from the Volusia County Jail. That's where they're bringing in truckloads of these sandbags. And then the second line is for people who are able to lift those bags into their cars. And some people tell us this is their third stop. In fact, we spoke with two ladies who said they ran out of sand over in Port Orange, and then they went to New Smyrna Beach. Of course, if you don't have a proof of residence, you cannot pick up sand from there. So then they came here because it is a county location, and now they're just trying to make sure they have all those last-minute preps. And although it was a long and stressful process to get the sand, they're just happy that the resources are available.
I had my buddy that was supposed to wake up nice and early for me, and he did not, so here by myself doing it, but luckily a good old Samaritan over there named Guinness was awesome, and he gave me a helping hand.
I'm more concerned about flooding because Port Orange, there's certain areas that through the last storm was really bad. I couldn't get out of my neighborhood, so I'm trying to take it a little bit more precautiously this time and hoping that everything goes well.
Now, typically this is done on a much smaller scale, but they told us they moved it here, added this bigger space and added this drive-through because they've been getting so many requests from communities. And it's a very strategic location just because it's right in the center of the county. They will stay open here until 5 o'clock, right, Melissa? Is that what he said? 4 o'clock. So you still have a few hours to come out here and grab everything you need. For now, reporting live in Volusia County, Sinaika Rodriguez, WESH 2 News.
Every time we check in with our crews all over the area, there's a lot of activity happening behind them, which means that, as Nancy pointed out, people are listening to the warnings and they're getting ready.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to be a very impactful Central Florida hurricane, right? And then even for the Tampa Bay area, also very impactful, regardless of whether this is going to be a 2, 3, or anything like that.
Right. So today's weather's fine, right? But looking at tomorrow, the afternoon and evening are going to go downhill pretty quickly. Overnight's going to get loud. So, you know, parents, let's make sure that we bring our kids, do a little party night. That way everybody's together and we can get through the storm just fine.
11 a.m. advisory is out, so let's get right to it and have a look. It's winds of 150 miles per hour, pressure down to 929 millibars. And I want to point that out specifically because the Air Force hurricane hunters have been doing multiple passes and they are finding slightly lower pressures, which would signify that this is strengthening. And I also want to show you our enhanced satellite because it does look like it's trying to carve out an eye, which would also signify that it is strengthening. So again, the hurricane hunters were doing several passes within the storm. Earlier, they found about a 927 millibar pressure, but now it's down to 925. So again, when that pressure lowers, the storm is slowly strengthening. Again, regardless, though, we are looking at some pretty significant impacts for Central Florida. I want to really stress the rainfall potential. Here's our two big models, European GFS. Now, while they're the long-range models, and this is a very short-term forecast, you get the idea that we are expected to have a lot of rain in Central Florida on top of the already a lot of rain that we had for Central Florida, especially if the core of the system works through Polk, Osceola, and Brevard counties. Rain is going to be on the heavier side or the northern side of this. So we're looking at heavy rainfall for I-4 and areas northwest. One thing that I found pretty interesting is the latest GFS model has a ribbon of rain from Flagler County all the way through Sumter County, signifying around 12 to 18 inches of precipitation. Not saying that this is necessarily going to happen, but we could see high rainfall amounts, which will lead to flooding. In fact, flooding is expected for Central Florida starting tomorrow. We'll have some outer rain bands working in. That will also lead to a potential of a couple of stronger or even severe storms. That's even before the storm arrives, Eric.
Yeah, so let's talk about the storm itself. And I want to just take a minute and compare, okay? The biggest wind push we have seen in a recent hurricane was 20 years ago or so. Hurricane Charlie had a wind gust at Orlando International Airport of 105. Going back and looking at Irma, Ian, and Nicole, they were actually considerably lower in terms of winds. The next best would have been Irma in 2017. I remember being here with Tony tracking that 79-mile-an-hour gust. So looking at Milton, okay, we're expecting winds in much of Central Florida in the red range of 74 to 110 miles per hour and even higher notes from about Winter Haven back over toward Hillsborough County. So based on this, one would just decipher, we at least have the threat of running winds on the Irma or Hurricane Charlie level. And I'm not saying this to scare you by any stretch of the imagination, okay? But I do want you to know that that's the kind of storm system that's moving our direction. So let's take it hour by hour together using our Futurecast model, okay? Here's 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. I want you locked in around lunchtime tomorrow, because after that we'll start to get some of these feeder bands that move through, could have some tornadic characteristics to them, gusty winds for sure, right? 6 p.m. still breezy but getting gustier, and then as the center of circulation starts to work in by about 2, 3, 4, and we've backed this up another couple of hours in the most recent runs. Here's 4 a.m. Winds running 20, 30, 40, 50. Kind of the further west you go, more wind, right? Notice by about 6 a.m., that's when the core of winds start moving into central Florida. These reds, browns, kind of whites, that's the destructive winds moving in. Hurricane force winds, all right? 7:30. As the sun comes up, we'll be running 80-mile-an-hour winds here in Winter Haven as the center of circulation is working almost right up Interstate 4. We're into hurricane winds here around Kissimmee, back over to Wildwood, into strong tropical storm force for the rest of central Florida. And then as it works on through, it's not until about 5, 6 o'clock that we really get the worst of those winds clearing out of central Florida, okay? So the squalls will be increasing tomorrow afternoon, but it's really overnight Wednesday into Thursday that the storm moves in and we get those hurricane conditions for central Florida, okay? So for today, it's cloudy and at times showery, but Wednesday late into early Thursday, Hurricane Milton moves through central Florida and gives us all of those impacts. The threat for isolated tornadoes, the winds upwards of 100+ miles an hour in spots, torrential flooding downpours, all of those ingredients. The good news for us is when it's done, we've got a beautiful stretch of weather, low rain chances, high temperatures in the 80s, lowered humidity too, and look at those morning lows. Morning lows in the upper 60s. At least for any kind of cleanup we need to do or try to enjoy a weekend, we'll be doing much, much better. Stay with us. Continuing coverage as we track Milton right after this.
From WESH 2, This is continuing coverage of Milton.
All right, thank you for joining us as we come upon 12:30. Maybe some of you watching us on your lunch break. Here's some of the latest. Right now, a lot of people are just trying to make the last flights out of town.
Yeah, you can only imagine the mad dash, the scramble to try to get out of here before Milton comes. Sonika Donge joins us now. And Sonika, right now, flights are still landing and taking off at OIA, but that's just for now.
Yes, this is very temporary, Sheldon, because we already know all airport operations at MCO will stop tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Operations will then resume once it is safe to do so. MCO, though, will remain open to accept emergency and relief flights as necessary. Sanford International just announced within the past hour that they are also ceasing commercial operations tomorrow at 8. The Melbourne Orlando International Airport will close to commercial flight operations tomorrow afternoon at 2 and will reopen Friday at 9. Daytona International Airports say they are monitoring the storm. And of course, once we learn of any updates, we will be sure to bring it to you. Our coverage of Hurricane Milton continues right after the break.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Milton.
So we need our residents to take place, use today as the last day of planning. So I encourage all of our residents to be off the roads by 12 noon tomorrow, Wednesday. Please, we do not need individuals or families driving on the roads after that time. The tropical force winds of 35 mile plus will be elevated and in the afternoon. So we need you to be safe and be in your safe place by that time.
Well, Osceola County officials are encouraging everyone to get all their final preparations done today before Milton gets here. And we know at this hour it's just off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula.
Yeah, we expect to start feeling its effects in Florida within the next 48 hours. We want to begin now with our meteorologists who are here tracking really every moment of this storm from the start. Kellyanne, Eric, not any major changes today.
No, really not. It has slowed down a bit, and that has adjusted the timeline a bit from last night's track to this morning's tracks that were issued. But overall impacts are still the same.
Yeah, and one notice, kind of just looking at the satellite imagery, is we think we're clearing out an eye. So to that point, we may have already started a strengthening process.
And the hurricane hunters are in the storm, and with each and every pass, they have shown winds of Cat 5 strength, but we haven't gotten official word from the National Hurricane Center. They would be the ones that actually issue that advisory. So we haven't heard anything yet, but looking at some of the data, it's absolutely possible that this is strengthening. For now, the official forecast, winds of 150 miles per hour, moving to the east-northeast at 9 miles per hour, and pressures down to 929 millibars. There's that eye trying to clear. It's not quite perfect, but it's trying to get there as it's in the warmer waters. Here's those passes from the hurricane hunters as they did their third pass. They're still doing multiple passes at the moment, and they're still finding some of those strong winds. Now, regardless of if this ends up being a brief Cat 5 hurricane, it's going to encounter some dry air from there, gradually weakening by landfall Wednesday night into early Thursday morning, and moving across central Florida Thursday morning as a Category 2 hurricane, and then pushing off of our coastline by Thursday afternoon and Thursday evening. We're looking at the past 5 tracks, and overall they're pretty consistent, maybe just a small shift to the south over the past 2. But when we really look at the past 2 tracks, they're almost identical. So there really has not been a shift within the tracks, which is just saying that we're still going to see those high impacts. Obviously, hurricane force winds is the biggest concern. There's a couple of other setups that we're watching, and one of them is going to include, especially north of the tracks, some heavier rainfall. And of course, we obviously want to know when the worst of the weather arrives. For more on that, let's get over to meteorologist Eric Burris.
And if we're looking for shifts, just to kind of see what's changing, I can clearly see a slowing of the forward momentum of the storm system in all of the reliable computer models. So the updated times now for the worst of the weather arriving in the Tampa Bay area, the metro area there, 10 p.m. on Wednesday. Arriving into Orange, Seminole, Osceola, kind of back over to Lake Polk, Sumter counties, we're looking at 2 a.m. and then more of a sunrise starting things along the I-95 corridor around 6 a.m. on Thursday. All right, so we've had to slow things down just a little bit, but I still think by about lunchtime, maybe we shift this to 2 p.m. Kind of, sliding rule there, but essentially, through the afternoon, we'll start to see winds pick up in these feeder bands, and then the worst of the weather clearly continues overnight. When we talk about the worst of the weather, highlighted in purple from about Fort Myers Beach, Sanibel, Captiva, and Pine Islands through Charlotte Harbor, all the way up through, say, the Tampa Bay area and into the Nature Coast. Highlighted in purple, that's where major hurricane winds are expected, 110 miles per hour or greater. Then we push into the Orlando metro, and we're talking hurricane force winds up through about Category 2 intensity. I mean, that's going to be a significant push, and as we were discussing earlier in the broadcast, very likely this will rival Irma's winds or even Hurricane Charlie's winds 20 years ago. It's been a while since we've had this kind of an impactful hurricane moving through the Orlando metro. To the north, Marion County, highlighted in orange, strong but damaging wind potential there as well. And notice that the hurricane force winds go all the way over to the East Coast. So when we break down counties, okay, Sumter, Lake, Marion counties, gusts running 75 to 90 miles an hour plus, particularly in southern Lake and southern Sumter, could see, particularly in Marion County, 10 inches or more of rain. For Seminole, Orange, Osceola, Polk counties, 55, 65, 75 mile an hour sustained winds with certainly higher gusts and 4 to 8 inches of rain. And then for Flagler, Volusia, Brevard counties, we're looking at those hurricane gusts, storm surge warnings in place, and upwards of 10 inches of rain, even higher into Flagler County. We'll talk more about the impacts from the storm in your neighborhood and help you time things out hour by hour so you and your family can prepare when we see you in just a couple minutes.
All right, we're hanging off your every word, Eric. Thank you. Right now is a great time to download our WESH 2 News mobile app and be sure to turn on the alerts. The newsroom constantly updating this app with the newest storm information. Also, the Weather Center is updating. We will send push alerts for any severe weather alerts for your neighborhood specifically. This is a great resource. Cannot stress that enough. Well, Osceola County has already given out thousands of bags of sand today, and it's barely 12:35.
Yeah, people waited for hours to get into one of the sandbag sites. WESH 2's Christina Watkins live at the biggest one at Osceola Heritage Park. Christina, I know people have been frustrated in these lines across Central Florida, but it's actually a good sign. They're taking this seriously.
You know, Nancy, that is a great way to look at it. Sheldon just said how we are hanging on to every word our team of meteorologists are saying. Well, the word here in Osceola County is prepare, and that is what people are doing. You can see the line of cars still continues to stretch all throughout Osceola Heritage Park, even though this sandbag site is technically closed. You wouldn't believe it just by seeing the amount of cars and all the people right over here. There you go. People have been waving and so kind to us as always, but they are finalizing their last minute preps. Let's walk over here so we can see one of the many sand piles available here in Osceola Heritage Park. The first homeowner got in line at 4 o'clock this morning. I talked to some other homeowners who got here at 8:30 this morning and didn't make it into the park until 12 o'clock. That is how long and how eager people are to prepare and to make sure they have everything they need ahead of Milton. We heard from county leaders not too long ago. They spoke about 2 hours ago, giving an update on some of their preparations. The county's emergency manager really wants people to take this storm seriously and use today to finish their plans. Take a listen.
So I encourage all of our residents to be off the roads by 12 noon tomorrow, Wednesday. Please, we do not need individuals or families driving on the roads after that time. The tropical force winds of 35 mile plus will be elevated and in the afternoon. So we need you to be safe and be in your safe place by that time.
And for those here in Osceola County who may not have a safe place to ride out the storm, there are several shelters that will open, including 2 shelters that open today. There was one for those who may have special medical needs, and there's also another for those who live in Good Samaritan Village. You'll remember 2 years ago that community saw catastrophic flooding from Hurricane Ian. So those shelters open today. The general population shelters, if you look at your screen, you'll see the long list of them. Many are pet friendly. Those open tomorrow morning for anyone who just wants to find a safe place to ride out the storm. There is help available. Back out here live, speaking of help available, you see all the sandbags people are getting. Each household can get up to 25. And again, I want to stress both of the sites in Osceola County, the only 2 sites available, are now closed, except to those who were already in line, many of whom have waited for several hours. And hey, last mention, so far since Saturday, the county has given out more than 300,000 sandbags. So if that's not preparation, I don't know what is. Guys, back to you.
300,000.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yep, speaks volumes about the preparation. And Milton is expected to make landfall along the west coast, but the Flagler County coast will see some major impacts as well. And I'm so glad we're continuing to emphasize our other coast, right?
Yes, we want to get back out to Pamela Combs. She's been at Flagler Beach all morning long, monitoring the conditions there. We can see some standing water there behind you, and this is not even connected to this most recent storm.
Right, this isn't even connected to the most recent storm. This is just heavy rainfall that fell over the last couple of days. It flooded this parking lot. The only ones brave enough to park here were those pickup trucks. We got about 5 inches the last couple of days. We're going to get about 8 to 10 more here in Flagler County. So if it's already looking like this, I don't even want to know, with the hurricane coming tomorrow, how this is going to be looking. This will eventually, I imagine, seep onto the roads, and for those other areas that are already so saturated, I mean, it's a recipe, honestly, for disaster. And add to that, here in Flagler, they've been preparing for possibly 3 to 10 feet of storm surge on the coast and the intercoastal. That storm surge is even more concerning during high tide. That combination isn't good at all. It could lead to localized flooding, water in people's homes, and again on the roads. So residents are securing their properties. Some know that they'll be fine, but they do worry for others.
With these people here, as you go coming across the bridge, it's only 2 or 3 feet right now between the high tide on the canals and their homes. I mean, it's really, I guess they say it floods all the time, but these poor people, they're not going to survive a 5-foot storm surge. It's really too bad.
The county did say evacuation orders could be coming soon. Those living in mobile homes and coastal communities should prepare to move, and the county does plan to open Rimfire Elementary School as their primary pet-friendly shelter. We hope to hear more about that in a press conference they'll be holding today at 3 p.m. And of course, we'll update you right here on WESH with the latest. Reporting in Flagler Beach, Pamela Combe, WESH 2 News.
Pamela, thank you.
All right, right now we want to take you out to Brevard County. Jetty Park in Port Canaveral closed ahead of Hurricane Milton. That includes the pier and the campground there. The park will remain closed until further notice. Officials will post updates online and on social media. Port Canaveral making some adjustments as well.
Yeah, this morning they moved into what they call Yankee mode. And I learned something new today because I didn't know what this was before this storm coverage. So Yankee mode means that they are open, but they're doing limited operations and they are preparing to close. Now, some of the major cruise lines are also making adjustments to their itineraries. Royal Caribbean told us that ships are sailing to different ports or they're adding sea days. Carnival is also adjusting their ports for some of their different ships. And if you plan to sail, officials say you have to touch base with your cruise line for any updates. So that's something to keep in mind.
All right, and just like all of us, hospitals in Central Florida are also preparing for Hurricane Milton. Let's bring in Jason Guy now. And Jason, they're taking precautions in and outside to keep patients and staff safe.
Yeah, Advent Health is deploying so many of these safety precautions, really extensive measures before the storm. It's happening at facilities in Orange, Osceola, Seminole, Flagler, Lake, and Volusia counties. Advent Health tells us it has stockpiled thousands of gallons of water, and generators are standing by to run the hospitals on emergency power if necessary. Sandbags are also prepared, should they be needed, to secure doors and windows. In addition to that, Advent Health Kissimmee has implemented a Tiger Dam flood control system to protect the hospital from potential flooding caused by this storm. So you see that's the Tiger Dam in place there. It creates a barrier against the water. The system uses those water-filled tubes that deploy the barrier, ensuring the hospital safeguarded from any threat here if there is flooding. Advent Health will continue to monitor the progression of the storm and provide updates to us and patients and families as necessary. And officials are also encouraging any potential visitors going there to see patients to remain at home until after the storm has passed. Nancy.
All right, Jason, thank you. Comforting, right, to see them taking those steps, that's for sure. All right, we have more team coverage as Milton makes its way toward Florida. Stay with us. Our coverage continues right after this break.
From WESH 2, this is continuing coverage of Milton.
I've got to say, between Ian and Nicole, and then even just regular afternoon thunderstorms, we've seen neighborhoods flood that don't normally flood, and that's why flooding is a big concern for people with this storm all across Central Florida.
Yeah, and that's also why sandbag sites are opening to help people protect their homes. That includes Lake County, so we want to take you there now. WESH 2 Spencer Tracy live at a site in Tavares, and a lot of people preparing out there as well, Spencer.
That's right. A lot of people are hunkering down here and getting their sandbags because there's parts of Lake County that tend to flood easily. Now, this is one of the many sites that are open across the county. It will be open later this afternoon, and we just heard a press conference with a lot of Lake County officials, and they say that they really want residents to get out here now, get your sandbags, get your food, get your water, because tomorrow, starting at noon, they're asking everyone to get off the streets and stay at home. And a lot of people that we're talking to say, you know, they're pretty scared, but they're also feeling prepared. They're making sure that they have the items that they need to make sure that they're safe. Now, a lot of from schools, office buildings are closing today. And another big concern is, as well as your family, they also want you to be concerned about your pets, to make sure that they're tagged or chipped and maybe even writing their names on their collar. You also want to make sure that pets are safe. And another option is, they said that there's no mandatory evacuations at the moment, but they said if they do need to, they will of course update you, and we will of course update you on air and online. But right now, they said they're just keeping a monitor from the sheriff's office, from the emergency management. They're really keeping an eye, and the big concern here is in Astor. That's where we've seen previous flooding in this area. And those shelters, 15 of them just opened at noon. We have all of that, the sandbag locations, as well as the 15 shelters on WESH.com. Stay with us. We'll continue our coverage in Lake County throughout our whole entire coverage. For now, we're reporting live here in Lake County. I'm Spencer Tracy, WESH 2 News.
All right, Spencer, thank you. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we saw that this storm is still a Category 4. Expanded a little bit. Still, what's the timeline as far as arrival to the Tampa/West Coast area?
So actual landfall is going to be early Thursday morning. In terms of when the worst of the weather arrives, it's going to be later on Wednesday evening as we get some of those outer rain bands pushing in, and then our severe weather threat goes up.
Think about it like this. The storm system is just a really deep area of low pressure, okay? So you have those impacts removed from the center. So even if it doesn't make landfall till like 1, 2 in the morning, you have to give it a couple of additional hours because there's that eye wall, all of those squalls associated with it. So it's kind of an overnight event for our area, which is why it's important to, once we settle to bed on Wednesday night, be ready for that to get loud outside. So if we have little kids, we want to make sure to ease them, bring them into bed with us, and also have a plan. That way, if it gets particularly bad, you know where to go, your safest room.
Absolutely. We always talk about preparation. That's one of the other preparations that it's always good to have as well. And if you are finishing your final preparations today is the last day to do it, because then starting tomorrow, rainfall begins to increase, winds then gradually pick up. 11 a.m. advisory is out from the National Hurricane Center. Milton, winds of 150 miles per hour, pressure down to 929 millibars. And this is moving to the east-northeast at 9 miles per hour. And I want to point that out specifically because at the 8 o'clock advisory, 5 o'clock advisory, and even the 2 o'clock advisory, it was around 12 miles per hour. So it's slowing down a bit. Overall, though, we're still looking at a very strong storm. But if that continues at 9 mile per hour movement, the impacts might get bumped back just a little bit, but overall the actual impacts of the rain, the wind, the flooding, the storm surge, all still going to remain the same. Looking at our enhanced satellite, we can see somewhat of an eye, and our visible satellite not really showing much. Now it is heading into warmer waters where water temperatures are around 86 to 85 degrees, which is usually like fuel for these storms, but dry air to the north is beginning to eat at this system, which could help to gradually weaken this system. Now, the track from the National Hurricane Center has a gradually weakened starting tomorrow morning. Still going to be a major hurricane, though, upon landfall late Wednesday into very early Thursday morning along the Sun Coast, then working through Central Florida Thursday morning off of our coastline by Thursday afternoon as a Cat 1 hurricane. And even if it's off our coastline by Thursday, we're still going to have those strong wraparound counterclockwise winds, which is going to be battering the waves across our coastline. And that's one of the big concerns after the storm is through Central Florida. So we have storm surge warnings in effect for much of our East Coast, with the exception of central and southern Brevard County. As of now, we're still, though, looking at high surf in your locations. Peak storm surge is going to be right around 5 feet at times, but 2 to 5 feet is going to be that range. Not quite as much storm surge as the Tampa area, but it's still going to do a lot to our very vulnerable shores since we've been through Ian, Nicole, and even though it was 2 years ago, we're still going to be looking at those big impacts, especially for Flagler and Volusia counties. So today, tomorrow, our waves begin to increase. Thursday, once the storm is off the coast, we're looking at seas around 15 to 20 feet. And even though the storm is going to be in the Atlantic on Friday, we're still looking at high surf, and those impacts will continue into the weekend. So while our forecast, Eric, may go back to normal, we still have to be aware of that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So let's take it kind of an hour-by-hour basis here. Let's look at our futurecast, and I'm starting this at 6 o'clock tonight. It's breezy, there's a few showers, but that's about the extent of it. It's a fine evening for normal life, normal activities, and frankly, about 6 o'clock, I have a feeling I'll be taking down the Halloween decorations at my house just because they would go flying otherwise in a hurricane. So, start thinking about that. We need to make sure that we're fortifying and bringing in all those loose objects. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, when we see on WESH 2 News coverage in the morning, it'll be rainy, it'll be breezy, but it will not be anything too inclement. Tomorrow's morning is going to be fairly normal. By about lunchtime, turning a bit breezier, and about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we're having to shift the timeline back a little bit. And so I think because of that, we're shifting our lock-in time to about 2 p.m. All right, so 2 p.m. it's breezy. There's some rains around. 3, 4, 5, you kind of see a wave of energy moving on in. That continues through 7, 8, 9 o'clock. This, again, is not the hurricane. This is just squally weather out ahead of the hurricane. But you notice 30, 40, upwards of 50-mile-per-hour winds. And then by about 11 o'clock, that's when we're going to start to see things turn. Hurricane starting to make landfall here around midnight near Tampa Bay, plus or minus a couple of miles north or south. But as that core of the storm gets closer, the rains get heavier and the winds get stronger. 40, 50-mile-per-hour winds, building to 60, nearly 70 by 5 a.m. And notice the core of the storm, according to our Futurecast model, is moving right through the I-4 corridor, 7 a.m. So the sun's coming up, and look at the winds, 60, 70, 80 miles per hour, and the core of Milton works right into downtown Orlando. 9 a.m., 70, 75 miles an hour around the metro, gusting to about 50, 60 miles an hour for Volusia, Flagler counties through 9 o'clock. Notice how much slower we've moved with this. This is 11 o'clock in the morning, gusting to about 75, 80 miles an hour down in Brevard, on the backside even. And then it's 11, 12, 1 o'clock. We finally push the storm system off the east coast. We'll start to turn the winds in a different direction, and we'll start to calm those winds down. So we've got a significant hurricane moving our direction with wind speeds expected to exceed 100 miles an hour in some areas around central Florida. There's also the risk for several tornadoes and a significant threat for flooding because we're modeling anywhere from 6 inches to a foot of rain in spots. So you put it all together and the idea is fairly simple. Tomorrow afternoon we get the squally weather. It's Wednesday overnight into Thursday that we really have Hurricane Milton move through our area. But once Milton's done, the good news is our weather really clears up. But for the kind of case in point, Wednesday into Thursday, we need to be prepared for a significant impact storm. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the sun comes back, the rain chances go down, and the humidity drops as well. Tracking Milton continues after this.
All right, as so many of us get ready for the storm, we do want to remind you that Florida's price gouging line is back open. We've got that number for you right now on the screen. It's 866-966-7226. If you see excessive price hikes on essential items like food, water, gas, or hotel rooms, call this number to report it. I just got a text from a friend who saw some price gouging on Cimarron.